Okay, I don't know if X is gonna work, but
I just need to put my
all
earbuds
right,
in real
X
quick.
is
I
not
don't get any
working.
feedback on your end.
Yep, go ahead. Hey guys, this is Bruce. Welcome to Convocourses, where we talk about cybersecurity and GRC topics. And today we have a special guest. It's John, aka Professor Blackops. I've been wanting to talk to him for a while here, and actually is Larry who put me on to him. So thanks, special shout out to Larry, man. Thank you so much, because I've been watching this stuff. I'm like, damn, this is really good.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I started getting into the cloud stuff, and then that's what John talks about. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey into cybersecurity and cloud.
Well, long story short, I'm old, man. I got my bachelor's degree in computer science in 1990. I had my first internship in 1988 doing JCL COBOL. So I've been in the game. So I actually started out because in the old days, cybersecurity was more of an apprenticeship, right? So I was a developer, system analyst, web admin, DBA. Then I got into security. I kind of like it was you. I was consulting at DoD for a while. Then they brought some guys from their Utah data center to train us in security. Then also after that, I worked for the state of Indiana doing IRS Pub 1075. So that's my 2-minute elevator speech. So that's kind of how I got into it, more of the traditional way. So
okay, I hear you. Yeah, I'm familiar with the DoD track there, because that's mainly what I've been doing in the past. And what's your day-to-day look like when you're on the job doing cloud and cybersecurity stuff?
The crazy thing is, so my day could be RFPs, RFI, because the company, I'm talking about different companies. I work for companies that bid on work and got government work. So you got to look from them from a security requirement. DPA is data process agreement, the legal part of that. And two, reviewing the RFPs for NIST, HIPAA, HITRUST. Can our company meet those services? And kind of like you, I do a standard SSP, which is about 1,100 pages some days. Other days, I'm reviewing security architecture from other companies that we have to connect to, because every vendor's in the cloud. So can that cloud vendor meet the security level we need? Because obviously you from DoD, so you can do NIST, STIGS. That's one of my favorite things that people hate. STIGS. Now CMC's out there, so you got to make sure your vendors are at the same security level as you. So that's coming to some of the high level stuff I do, and I do a ton of internal assessments. Are our developers doing the right thing? Audits, we got to make sure our policies and procedures up to date, standard SOPs, working with our infrastructure team, because we got stuff in the cloud. Are they configuring it right? So when we get audited, we can pass. So that's kind of how the cloud comes into it at integrating the cloud into assessment. So
Okay.
that's the big deal.
You said RFPs, that's request for proposals.
Yeah.
When your company is bidding for a contract,
Yeah.
you have to go through and say, okay, what requirements can we meet? Or maybe you guys should add this and that in there.
But then
You're part of that process.
Yeah, but you too, sometimes is okay, we can't meet this, but this is our mitigating control. So we got to, get that to the company, say, hey, we're a little out here, but we got these 4 other controls. This is something we're doing. We're going to the cloud. Here's our POAM. We can be here in a year. We're going to give you a good price. Can you accept it? So those kind of some of the things you do from RFP and RFI. Now, some people want information to see if you can even do that.
Right. And then you're the consultant that comes in there and tells these CEOs or whoever, directors, to say, okay, here's what a plan of action and milestone is. Here's kind of what we can do for it. Right. And then we can do cloud. Mostly we do AWS or we do Azure. So here's how we can meet this or that requirement for this bid that the government is trying to get us to get on. Right. So that's where you come in and massage that piece, right?
Yeah, let me jump in on that. I don't tell CEOs what to do. I give them risk and they make decisions. Right? We got to figure out who pays who, man. You've been in this game long enough. I don't tell CEOs what to do. This is
right.
And we're gonna talk about that. Is I've been overruled by CISO, CIOs. I was like, I don't think we should do that. Like, the money too good, high time. We're gonna do it. I'm like, you gotta help us. I got to reach the flag and say, here's our risk. This is what you signing up for. And then I call, ain't legal. You gotta back me up, man. What's our risk? Can we get sued? Right? I don't tell CEOs what to do. Let's be crystal clear about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, man, this man knows what he's talking about. You don't tell CEOs what to do.
CLM,
they can take it or not.
Yeah, career limited rule. I don't tell. See, I give them risk, and they make business decisions on that risk. So
There you go. There you go. Okay, let me see. And you mentioned the day-to-day looks like doing RFPs where you're helping the company to bid on contracts and being the consultant for that. You do system security plans, you do plan of action and milestones. It just depends on what day. So what critical skills have been most important to your career?
for me, just really digging into stuff. I think a lot of people get like, so NIST 800-53, you really got to read it to get the nuances of that, right? I think a lot of people think you're gonna gloss over that. Then digging into it. And the other thing I think we're lacking in there, that's why we had a whole PM, is communication. As you well know, as an assessor, I might have to talk to developers. I might have to talk to infrastructure. I might have to cloud. I got to talk to the C-suite some. If you're a senior guy, you got to talk to C-suite and get them on board. And a lot of times those people aren't on the same page with you, right? Right. So my job a lot of times is I don't convince them once I guess, here's your risk, here's your decision. I try to give you options. So I think that's the part from a senior level a lot of people are lacking. So that communication skills. Because a lot of times is I have CTOs, I tell them your architecture crap and we can't pass NIST, right? So they really want to fight, right? So
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 30 years, but you never bid on federal work with this architecture. It's not going to pass, right? So how do you communicate that to say we're all in it together? When I was younger, now I'm a little older, so I'm like, your architecture is good, but right, this is what we need to do. Here's just some other ways, right? So it's not contentious because people take me saying their architecture not good, me calling them crap, they want to fight. So as I get a little older, it's like, okay, no, it's good, but these are the little nuances we need to do. To do that NIST work or that STIG work or now the CMC, there's some things you have to do. And I think a lot of people, because you started up in the garage, you just can't roll up in the DOD trying to say this is the app and they're going to use it. It don't work like that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like educating them on what's going on. It's not necessarily like you said, as you get older, you start to realize like I'm not going to tell you your baby is ugly, but what I'm going to do is tell you how we can get the system there and what regulations that are here that we can get this on the right path. So and speaking to that, what frameworks or regulations do you mostly reference?
Mine is, people know, NIST 800-53. And if you look in there, it says agency defined. I'm an IRS specialist. The jobs I usually have, we're reporting to the IRS. So we're trying to get work from the IRS. So we're doing work for the IRS. So that, once again, we say agency defined, the agency I specialize in the IRS.
Okay.
So, then you're familiar with STIGS. They have schisms is how do you specifically harden a 2022 Windows server? What are your app checks? So they have it's called schisms instead of STIGs. So I could say, and that's why I don't argue anymore. I said, these are the requirements you have to do as a developer infrastructure. It's not my requirements. These are the legal requirements we have to do to be able to do that work. Right. So that's why I tell them facts over feelings. So I don't argue. These are the requirements. I'm here to help you meet those requirements. But if you can't meet these requirements, we can't do this work. So
right. So you're just educating them on like here's what the path we need to take.
Yeah, as a assessor, you do gaps. So sometimes you look at things you think is policies can have big gaps. Like, dude, you left this whole section out. You just said shell instead of will. You don't have configuration management, incident response. They want to be 72 hours or less. So what does that look like for your company? And can you meet those? They're really legal requirements, right? These are the legal requirements you need to do IRS work or CMC work or DOD work, right? These are the requirements you have to meet. So
Right. So another thing is now IRS, I have not stepped foot in that one.
Most people haven't. It's a hidden gem, but most people
it is. There's a lot of jobs I'm seeing pop up for that.
Well, real quick, I'm gonna interrupt you. They just got $2 billion to modernize, so everybody trying to eat on that.
Wow.
Yeah, if you Google it, they just got a whole lot of money. So everybody's out there trying to, the big dogs, Arthur Anderson, Deloitte. CAC is trying to get that money, so they're trying to get
five.
Yeah, so they're trying to get it. So that's why
Big Four is a Big Four, Big Five. I don't know.
I think it went to 4. Somebody got bought out or merged or something. But yeah, go ahead. But yeah,
okay. That actually brings me to another question. So would it be since you work for the IRS, would it be considered the gov sector or the financial sector or just both?
Well, really, I'm kind of more in the financial sector. I work for a financial company that's bid on that work. I don't work for the IRS. You
Oh,
do work
gotcha,
for,
gotcha.
everybody's trying to do work for the IRS and get paid by the IRS. I don't officially work for the IRS.
I
As
hear
you
you.
all know, though, you got to get your clearance and your NAT public trust, so you got to meet. There's actually a FBI fingerprint background check, which is a little different from the IRS. So
How long did it take you to do the that public trust? And is it mine to like the current job I'm working at? It's not Department of Defense, it's Department of Homeland Security. And that background check took, man, it took like 4 months or so. It took a long time. Did yours take like that long?
Well, I was lucky because the last job I had the public trust. So then when I came, I already had it, right? So
Okay,
for
okay.
a particular one, job I was doing. So
And I'm curious of the steps that that the organization has to take to implement the compliance features. Like I know that from Department of Defense to other organization I work for, it really depends. I mean, if it's a smaller system, it could take a couple months or whatever to implement it. And then I've been on systems that are huge, and it could take a damn year, to do it.
couple years. Yeah.
It could take a couple years.
It depends. Like you said, the small, it's the same thing, the smaller, bigger ones. The thing is, what you will know is the IRS had Booz Allen comes out to do their third-party audits. So Booz will roll up on you with 20 dudes, man. So
Right.
they actually did our audit when I was at the state of Indiana. They did it in 3 days, but it was brutal, man. So what they do is they come get your policies, procedures, run your Nexus scan, then they compile it all. Then they have a final meeting, and you be like, you got 1,000 findings, but one of them critical. So you got a provisional ATO, provisional authority to operate. Continuous monitor, fix these things, but you can do work for the IRS. So that's how they did it. Booz Allen was to come in, man, like the mafia. They come in like 20 dudes deep, and they enter the infrastructure, the DBA's guys, the compliance director. They looking out. They want your policies, procedures 3 days before. I mean, you've been there, so they come in like a gang, man. It'd be like, and it'd be brutal.
Man, it sounds very familiar to what I've gone through. So
it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's really interesting. Like for those of you guys who are trying to get in this GRC field, governance, risk, and compliance, whenever you go into another sector, what you'll find is like, especially you get really deep in financial sector or you get really deep in retail, whatever it is, you'll find that a lot of them are doing, it's really the same stuff, So, and speaking on that, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about compliance, about this field that we're in?
I think it's number one, it's easy to get into. You ain't gonna make $100,000 in 3 months. And the other thing I think we're selling short is you do need some level of technical knowledge because you're gonna be working with those technical people. And even policies and procedures, sometimes you got to write a procedure on onboarding. So you might talk about Active Directory, you might talk about AIM and Azure, AIM and AWS. So you got to have some basic knowledge. And we know segmentation of the network is really the ground floor. So you got to talk a little bit about segmentation of your network and at least understand it at a basic level. Especially now, I think we're in a recession in tech. So there's a lot of people out there looking for work. So I think you got to get your technical skills up. You can't be on zero on the technical now. You don't need to be a CIE of Cisco or something, but you need to have some basic so you can at least communicate with the tech guys and tech managers.
Yeah, I agree with that, John. Like that's one of the misconceptions that people think that they can just walk in and have zero IT fundamentals. And even though I've seen some people be policy wonks with very little technical background, is really important. Another misconception is that sometimes you get in these GRC or compliance roles and they're having you do technical stuff.
Oh yeah,
in some cases.
Oh yeah.
So it might have you run scans, might have you look at scans, might have you they're going to expect you to have some level of technical competency.
And just real quick, a lot of times it shouldn't be that way. Is GRC sometimes you consider a roadblock. Companies want to do features and make money. You tell them, hey, you're not CMC or IRS. They like, well, you stopping progress, right? So you got to be able to communicate that through, and you got to talk technical. They're going to try to run over you. you don't know what you're talking about, right? So you got to have some
Yes.
basic knowledge so you can be like, hey, we on the same team. Let's work together. I understand what you're doing. And a lot of times too, since I've done it and my Rolodex is big, I can call somebody from DOD Active Directory. Hey man, we got this problem. We trying to do this. How did y'all do it down there? Oh, we did this, or cut this button on, or do this. Tell them to do X. And I'm like, then you get credibility. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying no. I'm saying no, but here's your workaround, or this is what we need to do.
Right.
So I think you need to. That's some value as a senior guy. You definitely just don't say no. Say no, but this is the workaround, or this is what we need to do. Right.
That's right.
I call my people, but so I think that's
man,
a big help.
That's great advice, John. I love that, man. So now let me get to something that an area that I've been working on. I got a personal question for you. Personal professional question. So I've been doing FedRAMP for a while.
Okay. Love FedRAMP.
And on and off. And I'm trying to get deeper into cloud. What advice do you have for a person, a newbie like myself, trying to get a little bit deeper into cloud? Maybe not. I'm not trying to necessarily be an architect for cloud or something like that, but I'm noticing as I'm looking for jobs or whatever, that they're looking for somebody with more cloud experience. So what would you recommend for somebody like with my background has mostly cybersecurity background and then a little bit of FedRAMP. I'm messing around a little bit of cloud stuff, but what is my next, what's my next play to get deeper into it? Okay.
Just chiming in on that. FedRAMP to me is NIST 800-53, like you said, in the cloud. And right now, the nuance to that is this shared responsibility. So AWS, Azure, they're going to do the hardening. They got the webcam. So now it's shared. So how do you work with that? How I got in it is I tell people pick a cloud. AWS, Azure, Google's getting the love, but I'll pick one of those two. And just study. I got the certs. I'm an old school guy. So I studied to validate my studying or my learning is I got 4 AWS certs.
Okay.
Like you, I'm not an architect, but I need to know the services. I need to know how they work. And the big deal, is encryption. So how are you using your KMS keys? Are you using FIPS 140-2 encryption, which is encryption that's been validated by the government and got to sign off? Those are the little things from NIST and CMC and DOD. Those are the things they're looking for. So as I got those certs, my knowledge starts getting up. Then I just started labbing. Shout out to the Wine Lab every day. So I try to lab a couple times a week where I build a 3-tier network. And the new thing now is everybody's doing serverless. Now for 2025, I got to get better at Docker and Kubernetes, right? Half the things I review is talking about Dockers and Kubernetes. So what's containers? How do you secure containers? How does that work in network segmentation? Or the new buzzwords is zero trust, right? How do you set that up for your zero trust? So I just start learning AWS, getting validated with certs. And for me, you can kind of cheat with certs because you got enough experience. You say, hey, I got cloud, I got some certs, so I understand the cloud, right? So that's kind of how I use it, right? Because like you said, you got enough background. You just say, I'm proficient in the cloud, and I got AWS practitioner, associate architect, associate developer, and I got the security specialty, right? So that tells employers and I tell them, dude, I'm paper, right? My job is to do compliance and sign off on your architect to make sure we're CMC, IRS Pub 1075, STIGS, DOD, HIPAA, HITRUST. I can look at those services and make sure we're configuring it right and we can pass an assessment. So that's kind of how I went about it. As a whole guy, yeah. So and I think we kind of the same, but you just need to know the services. And the cool thing is both of them, they say this services, they have the compliance if it's NIST certified or CMC certified. So they do each individual service. So.
Oh, you mean AWS has each one of those artifact services
certified?
Yeah, built in.
Yep. So if you're doing an S3 bucket where you just object store and it says, okay, it can do NIST work, it could do CMC work. Because what AWS did and what everybody follow us, they wanted that government work. So they make it easy for you. So you just got to figure together. I go out and people don't even realize that I'm like, that service you do is not IRS Pub 1075. Now we could do some stuff to make it, but out of the box it's not, right? So that's the things we learn. And we can link up. That's what I go through on my videos to talk about those services. So I try to say this is a proof of concept or blueprint architecture for HIPAA. Then it goes through and say, these are the services, this is what they are, and this is why they meet that requirement. So
And just so you guys know, all you guys watching on TikTok, on Facebook, wherever, Professor Blackops has training on his channel. So go ahead and check him out. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm already subscribed to him. I'm already learning a lot of stuff about the cloud stuff. So go ahead and check him out. This dude knows what he's talking about. And we're talking about compliance. We're talking about cloud. And this is the way like he was saying before we got on this, like this is not the future. This is now.
Yeah.
Like this cloud compliance stuff is now. I find myself as I'm looking for jobs and stuff, they keep asking cloud. Do you have cloud? Do you have this? Do you have that? So just like Professor Blackops is saying, I'm about to get that cloud certification. I'm about to go that route right there because that's what they're looking for right now.
Another question for you. Your background, I mean, with your background, it wasn't hard. It was just getting the terminology and linking because all the stuff you're doing on prem, they really just doing in the cloud. Now they make it a little easier to spin up a VM or to spin over, you know, do a failover. In the old days, you really had to configure that. You do that with 2 or 3 buttons. You fail over from Cali to Chicago, right? But all the stuff you're doing on prem, they just make it super easy. So it's just really the terminology. All the stuff you're already doing, you know, the FIPS, you know, segmentation, they just doing it in the cloud. So you just got to pick up their nomenclature so you can communicate. So you, like I said, I did 4 certs in probably 3 months, man. It didn't take me long.
Wow. Okay.
We've been doing it forever. It's nothing different. If you know what a VM and a hypervisor, that's an EC2, right? If you want to know what about a load balancer, it's a that, right? So it's all the same stuff. I mean, you deal with Cisco and Juniper. It's all the same stuff with network and AWS and Azure. It's just their nomenclature for it.
Okay. Now, have you worked? Well, actually, obviously, you worked in gov sector, financial sector. Have you done any healthcare stuff? And is there a difference between those different sectors and industries for cloud compliance?
Yeah, a couple of companies I used to work for, they did have some HIPAA work and some HITRUST work. But like you said, it's the same thing. I think for me, and I say this a lot, and this is only my only PBO said HIPAA is a bunch of crap because they don't have any implementation guidelines. Like we got the STIGS and the SCSEM. So I'm like, dude, that's why hospitals are getting taken out the box, right? So I think they try to do it a little bit with HITRUST, but now it's the same thing. You got policies and procedures. And if you look at NIST 866, they do the mapping for NIST to HIPAA. So that's what I use when I do HIPAA work. Because since I've been doing this so long, if you look at NIST 866, that's the mapping from NIST to HIPAA and HITRUST. So I usually just use that, and they tell you actually what policies map to their policies. So that's kind of I cheat when I do HIPAA work. I have to do a lot of side work in HIPAA because you get 3 dudes in the garage on Upworks think they're gonna walk into a hospital and just do an app. And I was actually talking to a big hospital like here. They go, yeah, you need to help them because you're just not gonna roll up here with no paperwork and think we're gonna use your little bitty app. So same thing. You gotta have policies and procedures. You gotta have an architectural diagram. They want you to do certain level of encryptions when you go. So it's like you said, if you got a base understanding of one of the big compliances, they all kind of the same. Especially if I do NIST. I'm a NISTbigot because it's the bigger one and more complex. So if you can do NIST, all the other stuff is teeny. I got it up. Shout out to Dr. Ozier. I called NIST CSF the little brother. He didn't like when I called it that. CSF is the little brother of NIST 800. That's for tiny projects. He didn't like that. Shout out to him. So I love this. But two is people tell you, I done got out some big discussion. It's hard, but I told them cybersecurity is supposed to be hard because STIGS make people cry. So I'm about that life, man. So that's me on my soapbox. So
I love what you said about the NIST. Like if you know NIST 800, you could pretty much master any other standard regulation or framework because it's huge. So coming from Department of Defense or government, if you're doing NIST, wow. I mean, you'll find PCI DSS, you'll find HIPAA, you'll find ISO 27001. You'll find all of them fit into the NIST because the NIST is just so robust.
So my argument, I've been really, which I need to stop having debates with people on CMC. NIST 171's probably got 60% of the checks at NIST 800. So how are we doing more secure if we're doing less checks? That don't make any sense to me. Oh, CMC, I'm like, well, how are we doing more secure if it's 60% of the checks? I've been debating, guys, but CMC's the way. I need to jump on that back. But the sad thing is it's easier because it's way less checks. So it's because it's 171.
CMMC?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
it's NIST 171 with about 20 extra checks, but it's probably only 60% of the checks of 853. So I'm like, how are we more secure if we're doing less checks? Yeah, so nope. So people kind of like shrug.
And CMMC has less families that
That's
they
what
look
I mean.
at. Really,
Yeah, way less checks.
we got 20 families in NIST 800, but they only have like what 7, 6, I don't know, 5.
Yeah, they got
something like that.
I think they added 2 more in CMC, but when you map the checks, it's way less checks from a STIG and SCSEM. So I'm like, dude, how are we doing less checks and being more secure?
Right.
I appreciate you, Larry.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Shout out, Larry, man. I had another question here. So you mentioned earlier about the certifications. Which certifications and training would you recommend for somebody trying to specialize in cybersecurity cloud compliance? Now, you did mention AWS track where you got the CCP and you've got the specialization in cloud. Any other cloud certifications that you would recommend or training?
Yeah, I'm actually going to jump on that AI and ML. I got to get a better understanding. I've been kind of digging in because when you talk about models and poisoning models with knowledge from a compliance standpoint, I just got into it. I'm like, well, what do I protect in there? Right. So that's kind of a little different. Everything else, I'm kind of like, okay, I got this. I got a key. I got a database. I got some flat files. I can do some. But when you start talking about machine learning, I'm just trying to understand. And every app people doing, they want to do artificial intelligence in there. So from a compliance standpoint, GRC person, what's the standard things to protect, right? When people doing facial recognition, one guy was taking your speech, right? Are you tokenizing that? Are you normalizing that? Or how are you, when you get that in there, how are you protecting that more than the standard encryption? So my thing is kind of doing artificial intelligence and machine learning is kind of my next thing I've kind of been digging into the next couple of weeks. If you look at NIST got their AI 100. So I did a video on that. So, NIST is always out there trying to be at the cutting edge from a government. So I always try to look at their NIST special publication. They usually have special publications in this thing. And so I tell people, I try to go over special publications at least one a month because that helps me learn about them. And 2 is they're always updating them. Some of them are super old, though. You got to check the date. I did when I was like, oh, shit, that was 10 years old. I don't know if that's real. But a lot of times they're still good, but still so. But yeah, so I was doing a special publication on artificial intelligence, machine learning. Every app or every vendor's got some of that in. So what's the compliance way for us to actually check it and do continuous monitoring? And me just being more comfortable with that, especially as a senior person. So.
Yeah, I definitely want to go that route of doing getting deeper into AI. And I was thinking about that AWS AI cert. But first, I want to go ahead and do the beginning of it, which is to do the cloud practitioner, certified cloud practitioner. And then from there, I don't know which way I'm going to go.
I would do associate architect. The reason why you're not being an architect, but I think you need to understand how people, when you architect, that's a lot of times what the security things we're reviewing is part of that, right? Because I had a title of security architect before, so a lot of times I got to look over the architecture to say, okay, this is compliance with NIST or CMC, or how are you doing this network segmentation? What can talk to what? And are we doing API call, SOAP call, SOA call? So doing those architecture. Okay. And then, like I said, it's pretty high level. So yeah, I would do that. Then for you, I probably would go to the specialty, the security specialty.
Security special. Okay.
Then, like you said, then they got the AI. I programmed, so one of my specialty is Purple Team. I do a lot of application security. OWASP Top 10. How are you doing that? So for me, that's a hidden skill I try to bring. So that's why I took the AWS development.
All right, man, that's awesome. Let me see. Another question for you is I was watching your channel, and for those of you who don't know, first let me catch you up if you're coming in late here. I'm talking to John Hightower, aka Professor Blackops. He's on YouTube. His content is awesome. He specializes in cloud technology. He specializes in security and compliance, which is rare. You don't see people talking about what he's talking about here, but he goes in very deep on these topics. So check him out. Link is in the description below. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe to him, There he is right there. I'm subscribed. I'm learning from him. I'm watching his videos about cloud stuff. So I'm excited. Next question I have. I noticed on your channel you have a lot of news, cybersecurity news on some breaches and stuff that's been happening. And what would you say is the scariest breach that you've seen so far that you've covered?
Probably the Kaseya's one, and the one that just happened where you get what the big one, CloudStrike, where it's because the part that made that scary is they got in their pipeline. So you saying, oh, everything from CloudStrike's good, then you put that stuff on your infrastructure. So it's really bypassing their security, and you sign off on them, right? So that's one reason where we say you should do third party risk assessments, and that's a hidden gem. And the other part is supply chain. If you looked at NIST, those are two things last year that really got bigger, right? So, I think that's a hidden gem. So those are the scary parts. So, and that's the thing with zero trust. You assume when something's on your network, it's going to be breached. So how can you stop it from doing lateral movement? How do you make sure it's signed? How do you make sure if it is breached, you can contain it and you know what it's touched? All right, so that's where your Splunks come in, your Elk cache. So you got to be monitoring that stuff in case they get in there. You got to figure out what's been stolen or where they went to. So I think from a security perspective, but the cool thing is, and if you look at STIGS and SCSEMs and CIS checks, if you do that, that's going to take care of 80%, I believe, of your nation states or your advanced BT, especially your script kiddies. Right, a lot of companies, when you look back on, they're not doing the basics because the one Snowflake, they didn't have MFA turned on. I would have found them a gazillion. Now, how you not you a major cloud vendor? You got people's data in there, and let me roll that back. Ticketmaster didn't cut on their MFA. Snowflake said you should do it, and it was a requirement. It was super red in their document, but I think they should have forced them on. If they didn't cut it on, they should not let them connect it, right? But two is I don't want to blame Snowflake because I think people are responsible for their security. Right? They gave, and that's what AWS says. AWS says, here's the components. You're responsible because it's shared responsibility. You're responsible for configuring it to the level of compliance you need to be as STIGS, DOD, IRS. You're responsible for that level of configuring that together, right? As a security architecture. And us as compliance has got to check off on that. So
So they're saying, we protect the infrastructure, but it's your content. You have to protect your content. Okay, so another question here for you is about resources. How do you remain up to date on cybersecurity and cloud technology? Is there like especially like some books or other podcasts?
Shout out to you. You got great books out there. A lot of times I'm trained, so I'll be checking out your books. Your content. There's a ton of videos out there. And the cool things that you got to remember, I'm pre-Google, man. I used to actually have to look at manuals. AWS has their big events as your have, and they go into some advanced detail. They say this is advanced 300, 400. So you can learn stuff out the back where in the old days, you just couldn't learn stuff like that unless you spent $5,000 and went to the Oracle convention or the Microsoft. Now, most of that stuff's online. You just got to roll up your sleeves and get dirty. And I think a lot of people don't want to get that, man. This ain't magic. That's why I took it. This ain't magic. You got to get in there and get dirty. But the cool thing is, as you learn, especially from even the big vendors, there's just so many resources out there. And two is, I lab in AWS. I could do a lab. It might cost me $5 to do a big lab. I got an Oracle database. I got a 3-tier network. I'm failing over from the East Coast to the West Coast in multiple regions. All that might cost you $5, man. So it's much easier. In the old days, I had 3 Dell servers in a bedroom trying to configure stuff. Now you can just spin it up on AWS and you can get as advanced as you want. And a lot of times AWS lets you do it for a year for free. So you can actually change emails. I'm not recommending that, but you can get a new email and do it free for a whole nother year. So there's a lot of ways to learn and there's a lot of people you can reach out to. Shout out to Dewan, us, Struggle Security. There's just so many people out here that'll help you. That's
Thank you so much for that. That's great information. Let me see. This will be my last question. And then we'll go to if you're open to it. I've got a bunch of people asking questions.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely. I got you in for an hour and a half. I don't think we need that. I'm single. Don't nobody want me, man. I got time. We can do it. I got time.
Okay. So what tools and technologies do you recommend for managing compliance activities efficiently?
This is a weird question. Not a weird question, but you're gonna like this. Is I work for small companies. We do all that shit on a spreadsheet. Next thing I know, I'm in Archer and it costs $1 million. So most of the times, most times you can do it on a spreadsheet. Most of your scans gonna come out in spreadsheet form. You get your policies and procedures. The thing I've been working on, and I'll probably reach out to you, is everybody's on teams. A lot of times I'll be using SharePoint. You can actually do approvals for policies and procedures on SharePoint. They actually have Planner that's included. So you can actually set up a small GRC inside Office 365 that your company's already paid for and stop getting out of spreadsheets. So, but 9 times out of 10, I do a lot of stuff on spreadsheets. So, and most companies are doing spreadsheets. And the weird thing is most vendors are looking at spreadsheets. Most of my scans come out in spreadsheets. When I do something in Nexus, spreadsheets, looking over compliance scans for STIGS or HIPAA, all that stuff comes out in spreadsheets. So I would start out in spreadsheets. Then once you get to Open Pages or Archer, which is the 800-pound gorilla, Security Hub and AWS is their version. So I'm hoping to do more videos about it. But that's kind of it. If you can do it in spreadsheets, it's easier to do. You can do it in anything. So that's why I tell you, if you can do it in spreadsheets. What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on that? That's kind of what I see. Either I'm Archer or I'm in spreadsheet. So I really get middle ground.
You mentioned Archer. That's one that's used quite often in different organizations. There's a bunch of content management. I don't know what they're called, content management systems.
Yeah.
But there's like in the military, they'll have like Exacta. They have EMAS.
I see EMAS a lot. I use EMAS. Yeah, that's the big one. But when I'm in the private sector,
private sector don't use that. I mean, they use Archer.
Archer's the big one. But the weird thing though, either I'm working for, especially when you're doing NIST or IRS, usually you're working for a big vendor or a big company. So usually they're gonna have Archer because they got money. Yeah, right? Because when you eating that Fed money, that's why I'm fat. You can get good. So they usually got money. So if they doing that Fed work, they usually got money to get Archer. So either I'm doing Archer or I'm on spreadsheets.
And really, it all comes. I hate spreadsheets, to be honest with you, but everything comes from spreadsheets. Like even if you have an Archer, you're gonna create a .csv file that is a spreadsheet. So everything comes down like, and it's funny to me, like some of the companies they'll spend $1 million on some system, and they're like, okay, and I'll use that system, and they're like, look, we want a spreadsheet. I'm like, well, then why did you buy this system?
I know. I think people just custom to it. What I'm trying to do is inside Office 365, the spreadsheet at least comes up inside there. At least it's contained, and we're not emailing spreadsheets around as much. So I try to do that. Shout out to Larry. We always on there. You know, he's always trying. He's definitely in.
Yeah, Larry's the one who put me on to you. Okay, I'm going through some of the comments and stuff. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everybody watching.
Go back to that. We'll go back to that one. Really, that Linux one, real quick. Yeah, if you're on Amazon Linux is really a fork of Red Hat. And 2 is my favorite operating system is Linux. I think it scales better. Even though when I go to a lot, everybody's running a piece of Windows, but I like Linux. And when you do Amazon Linux, it's a fork of Red Hat. So I think those skills are needed, especially
Absolutely.
Oh, she's with the GRC family. They call it GRC Mafia. They on GCR. Shout out to Reggie. So, I had him share it out early this morning. I reached out to one of my young homies and said, share this out. I'm going on Convo. That's my guy. Share it out for me.
Oh, awesome.
Shout out to Regine. Subscribe to my man. We trying to get up there with the 50,000 people. I mean, 50,000 subs. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I got some other people on TikTok. Let me see if I can read some of these questions here. If you guys watching here, I'm talking to Professor Blackops, who is a expert on cybersecurity compliance and cloud compliance. So I'm learning a lot myself. I've been checking out his content. It's awesome. If you didn't know, go ahead and check the link in description below and join Professor Blackops. Let me see more questions on TikTok. And I wish there was a way I could share TikTok. If you guys could, I could pull you guys into this, into the YouTube stuff, so you guys can see my screen. Let me see. This is a great conversation. Who is speaking with you? This is Professor Blackops. And okay, I got one question. Somebody said, Professor Blackops is he on TikTok?
I'm too old, man.
No.
When you almost 60, you can't be on TikTok now. That's on my list to do, man. I'm barely doing YouTube right, man. Come on, y'all got to work with me. I'm on YouTube and LinkedIn. I just got on LinkedIn for a multi simul class. So now I think if you're 60, you got to slow up on TikTok, man. I'll be 57 this year. So now I'm not there. I need to get there, though. That's one of my things in 2025, man.
They're looking for you on TikTok.
Yeah, I see you doing the TikTok thing. So.
Somebody said going from IC auditor to GRC to GRC manager. Going from IC auditor, GRC to manager. Nearly 7 years in IC. I don't know what IC is.
Industrial controls, SCADA stuff, I believe. Nuclear stuff, electric stuff. Okay. I'm real. That was one of my passions, looking up electric grid stuff. China was in our electric grid for about 5 years. So the IC, I'm pretty sure, is industrial controls. Shout out to Struggle Security. He used to do nuclear cyber stuff. So yeah, so check him out. So that's one of the guys. I'll probably start doing a panel once a month and invite you if you got a little time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We wrap it up on have all the guys just kind of talk about different things. And a question to you real quick is the port strike. Long story short, did you see the automation on the ports?
Oh yeah, I did.
So I'm thinking, yeah. So if we do China's super, so I'm like, if we get cyber attack, we ain't gonna never get no toilet paper. So I was doing it, right? Because I mean, they just talked about it. So you can strike and you can shut down the port, so you can't get anything delivered. Right? From a cyber perspective, and that's kind of more of an IC problem. Go ahead.
To back up, like to get you guys in on what we're talking about. So there was one of these shipping ports, what they did was they automated something like 80% of all of the functions on the port, which means they have like automated cars going using algorithms and AI to deliver things. And the pros are that less people are getting hurt. It's faster. They can speed up the process without people getting hurt. The cons, of course, are jobs. Like you're eliminating 80% of the workforce. Yeah. And then another con is this, like what John just said, is that if your shit gets hacked, you're done. You are done. Like if your shit gets hacked, you are done.
But real quick, the nation's done, right? That's the national critical infrastructure now, right? That's like water, right? You can't go ahead. I just want to throw that in. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Like it brings to mind something that happened like locally. We had. Well, I don't know if they have this is throughout the US, but in Colorado, they start automating the Walmarts, where the Walmart, you can just walk in and there might be one cashier, right? If something, for whatever reason, you want to go use that one cashier, you can go and put your stuff through there. But for the most part, all of the lanes were were all automated. You can just go in, check all your stuff through. But what happened was this. There were too many people stealing from Walmart. And people are smart. They're bypassing somehow the automated systems, and Walmart lost millions and millions of dollars, which made them say, okay, we need to go back to the regular model because we're losing too much money. Yeah. So now when I go in there, it's about 50-50 now. So there are the automated places where you can go through and check all your stuff, but there's also the actual cashiers, and a lot of people prefer the cashiers. So I'm thinking the same thing with maybe it's oversimplification, but maybe it's the same thing with the automated shipping yards. It's like you don't want. Isn't that super risky to have all your stuff automated?
No, but for what they did though is there's 3 big ports. They the only one could take the big ships. So I think they figured out from a company standpoint is you can't steal a container. So they're trying to cut. Especially those guys got a 70% raise. So they're like, hey, you making 150, we just going to automate it, right? From a business perspective, right? So I think from their state, because we got to remember is technology, there's an ROI, right? Return on investment. So once you get to 2, they got guys making 300,000. So if you make 300, I'm sending the robots on you, right? So yeah, that was some of the. And the other thing that came out of that you will like is, AWS is building their own containers. They bought their own ships because some of their stuff is high dollar. It's smaller ships, so it costs more. But I said, because they got infinite money, they're gonna build their own port because they like to automation improve it. So I think we're gonna be going through and kind of like a warehouse. They let their competitors use their warehouse. I think they're gonna buy a port and let people use that port and charge them. But go ahead, chime in on that one. That's just kind of a bit off. So I was thinking about that. Go ahead.
I think that's what's going to happen. Is that I don't think companies can resist, like your Apple and your Amazon and your Walmart. They're going to try it, but I'm just thinking, as a cybersecurity guy, like I personally wouldn't want that much risk to just throw all my. I would do like a 50-50 type thing, but I don't know. They're going to do their own thing. And John says, great content. I'm an engineer technician with a secret clearance. More of a electronics troubleshooting background. Do you see this type of career transferring into a GRC career? I don't know that it's going to transfer. You're always going to need electrical engineering technicians. I think that GRC is kind of another layer. It's its own thing. So I don't know that your whole field will transfer into it, but it's something that you probably want to look into if you're looking for. It pays, man. GRC stuff pays. Like if you're learning these frameworks, if you're learning these the regulations and stuff like that, there's an upper level that pays, and you can pivot from one to another. Like you can pivot into management if you want to go that route. You can become more technical if you like. You can become super deep into just cybersecurity technical work. So I'm trying to sell it, but it's its own thing, is what I'm saying. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, John?
No, I agree with that, because if you look at NIST, a lot of times what's going to be in there, supply chain, where you're getting your electronics from. You can't get them from China, right? Prohibitive telecom will come. So like you said, that layer comes in. And two, if you're selling their electronics to the government, you still got to have policies and procedures, how you doing stuff. So I think but just back up what you said is, I think with the ports, you're going to have a DR plan where you can roll over to another port.
Recovery.
Right. Yeah. Right. So how do you stop the virus from going from one to the other? Right. So I think that's the part of that from a compliance perspective with the ports. I don't think they got a DR port. So if we don't get no toilet paper, there's nowhere else to send it. So we got to figure out what's the disaster recovery, right? If somebody hacks it, or we got something that's maybe, like you said, a little more manual and that less automated, so we can get our medicines in and our fruit in. So, but I think that would actually fall under the Department of Homeland Security, because when I was at the state, we would do a DR test with Department of Homeland Security for nation state agency. Long story short, if every department of taxes in the state got hacked, they believe China would be trying to shut down the funding of the United States. So the Department of Homeland came in and did our DRs to make sure we would let them know, and how would you handle if the whole nation state would happen. So you would think they would do that with the ports. Go ahead on that. Chime in on that.
One thing I've been learning, like as I'm getting deeper into cloud, and I'm noticing like it's beautifully done. Like the whole how they do have AZs, different zones for cloud. It's almost like, I think that in order to have more robust technology, you have to use cloud. It's just a smarter way to do things.
Cheaper too, and a lot of stuff cheaper too.
You have a region, right? And each region has a different AZ. And those AZs are like within the same region. So it's perfect for disaster recovery. So if you're in, I don't know, East Coast or something, you might have one system in New York and one in New England or something. So where if this one goes down, you can automatically transfer your functions to the other one. And you kind of have to do cloud. Like the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm like, damn, this is way smarter on how to do things. But as far as like having the ports become 100% automated, or even, I think even 80%, I think it's too much. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, on that, you're 100% right. What Amazon does is, when you're in a region, if you got multiple AZs, they're 150 miles away. What they did, I thought was incredible, was each AZ has their own electric company, their own water company, and their own telecom. So every now and then, a region goes out. So I just flow it over to a whole nother region in the Midwest.
Right.
And the cool thing is, those AZ, I actually put systems in each AZ. It's got milliseconds. So when you go over, you load balance. So if one AZ goes down, it automatically uses the other ones, because you can load balance between the AZ with a click of a button. So I got 3 web servers in each AZ. If one AZ goes down, it just starts using the other 2 and mark the other one as unhealthy. And you can do that with like 4 clicks. So, that's kind of things I've been doing from an architecture standpoint and from a DR standpoint. And I talked a little bit about that in the cloud. But yeah, I got to look up it's a data center. I don't know what the official word. I got to look it up myself. It's a data center, but I got to look up what the actual term is.
Okay, I got some more TikTok questions. But before I do that, let me...
Availability zone.
There you go.
See, it's availability zone. I have to look it up. Regime availability zone, which is a data center. But yeah. So I got a video where I talked about their data center. And they're doing some other stuff where they do, they call it a segment data center, which is actually in a city, so you can get micro speed in it. So he's in Colorado, so I might have 3 data centers in Colorado, but I got a smaller clack in Colorado, so he can get micro speed in there. So I might have a couple web servers. Then I got my network wired underground, my fiber that's going to actually connect to the data center, so you can get microsecond response. So they're doing some cool stuff in AWS with that.
Definitely. Okay, got another one for TikTok. Somebody said a United Health company got breached because they didn't implement MFA on one of their databases. Shaking my head. Yeah,
I think that was part of the Snowflake one. And 2 is that's my one of my issues with HIPAA and HITRUST. The health industry, I don't think is as thorough as DOD, because when DOD come out, you're gonna get a 3PO out. The 3POs, they love giving you a bunch of findings. I think they get paid by the findings, so they try to find every little thing wrong with you. So I don't think they have that assessment rigor that I think DOD has. And the IRS is pretty good because they pay Booz Allen, so they're going to make you look bad when they come out. They take it as a personal mission to find something. So
telling you,
yeah, so they get that rigor. I just don't see HIPAA and HITRUST, like I said, with the rigor as the IRS and NIST, and especially STIGS when they used to come out from DOD. Those guys come out, they're gonna find something. They take it a personal challenge. But
I'm telling you,
I think it was, I enjoyed the challenge, but yeah, you gotta be on your P's and Q's because they're gonna find something. So
I'm telling you, I've been through several of those, and they are brutal. Oh my Lord, man. They're not messing around.
No, man. So they're
not messing around.
Yeah, the cool thing though, I tell people though, is they gonna make you good, or you gonna get bounced out. Because when they first doing it, man, my boss was looking at me. I'm like, hey man, I didn't know who was gonna do that. I didn't know it's going at that level. The crazy thing is, we had a whole bunch of fighters that go, oh no, you in the top 10 in the whole United States. I'm like, man, I felt like I failed, man. But that makes you better. That makes iron sharpen fire. And like my man said, is once you do a couple of them, you're not surprised. You kind of know what they're looking for, and the big things, because usually they got critical, significant, or Cat 1 if you STIG. So you just try not to have too many big Cat 1s, man. So, but as you do it a couple times, you just learn it, and you just know what to look for, and you get more comfortable. Now it's kind of like, it's a finding. It's a Cat 3. It ain't no big deal, It's a 2. They don't like I compensated control, but
exactly. The name of the game is management of the risk.
Yeah.
So it's not 100%. Like, you're not trying to eliminate all risk. There's no such thing as that. You're trying to manage the risk properly, and so long as the organization acknowledges what's going on and has an answer for that thing, that vulnerability or that weakness that was found, now you have you've limited the risk by either documentation or having compensating controls or whatever. But you don't want to ignore the risk, that's for sure.
And the thing I try to tell people, especially young guys, is it's cooler if you find a risk, even if you have it on a poem. At least you can say, "I found a risk. We brought it to management. It's on a poem. This is we're gonna get it fixed." It's worse when they go, they find something. You go, "Yeah, I know nothing about that." So at least you want to. I've had a few of those, man. So at least you want to have, because if you identify the risk and you have it on a poem in the schedule, even if they don't like the schedule, part of risk is, like you said, is understanding the risk. Management signs off on it. So now you're not looking like you didn't have no idea about the risk.
Yeah.
So now it looks like you understand the risk, you validated the risk, you got compensated controls, and sometimes is money's not infinite. You need another Cisco router. That's $250,000, man. You ain't doing that this year, right? You go get your extra, router next year for more DR. You just using virtual. So you want to identify the risk and know that you're on top of it. They can always slap your hand, but if you identify the risk, you look 90% better, even if you get a Cat 1 findings. Your management understood and they signed off on it. So that's a huge part.
Okay, got some more stuff from TikTok. Somebody said CSAM. CSAM is what I'm currently using right now at the organization I'm at, and that's a cybersecurity assessment and management application. It sucks, by the way.
That's a government thing. Yeah, since I left DOD, I don't see that. So no,
yeah, there's that one, and then there's other tools like ServiceNow. There's another tool called the Jira. There's one Archer. We already mentioned that one. Exacta is another one. EMAS is another one. Sometimes they'll do like their own homegrown systems that they're usually not very good. But they'll be based off of some database, and then they'll make their own in-house one. They've got a lot of tools that will manage the whole compliance roadmap, like from the time that you build the system to making sure the system has a proper level of security categorization, and then all the security controls and everything. So that's what CSAM does, and some of the other tools that are out there do.
And what you got to be careful of is, a lot of people don't do this, is depending what you put in there, you got to do a security review. If you put your findings in there, and we were people putting test data, I'm like, dude, you put real IRS stuff in there, man. If we put IRS data in there, then it's got to go through the IRS hardening. It's got to go through all the rigor stuff. So, I think a lot of people, especially when I do federal work, a lot of times the IRS has tools you can use of theirs. But if you use your own and you put any kind of classified data in that, be that IRS, even PI, you got to harden that infrastructure at that same level, that data you put in. I think a lot of people miss that.
Not only that, but any data you put in there, you got to update it constantly, because especially like your SOPs or whatever, that stuff gets old. So you got to constantly refresh it.
Yeah, I was using Power Automate because you can do email. So once we check our, and I've been kind of playing around with a homegrown app I might develop, is you can check your policies on there, get approval at manager level. Then you can put a reminder, because I think you got to review.
Oh man, that's good. That's a great idea.
I think that changes every 3 years. It used to be every year. So after 9 months, we can send out an email to the management and the project leaders. Hey, we need to get these policy reviewed, because we got to make sure, from our organization defined, you got to review them every 1 year or 3 years. So I'm developing something like that. And all that stuff comes in Office 365 that you're already paying for. So that's some stuff I was using.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yep, I saw that.
Thanks,
Shout out
John.
to that.
Larry says, how important do each of you feel networking is for people looking for entry-level cybersecurity opportunities in comparison to using job search sites like Indeed? Is one of the more effective combination of both. Networking, meaning like networking with people.
Yeah.
It's pretty important. I wouldn't cut it out. Okay. When you get into a job, don't burn bridges. This is a very small field. When you get into a job, no matter what job you have in IT, do not burn bridges. No matter how much you hate your job, no matter how much you have an issue with people there, do not burn, because you may need those people to sign off. You might need them to call in and reference as a reference. Don't burn bridges. Networking is pretty important in this field. I wouldn't say it's all networking, because me as a person I'm a shut-in. I'm an introvert. I don't know many people. I don't talk to many people, and I've still been able to get jobs, and I'd say still with me, as a hermit, 50% of my jobs have come from people I know.
Yeah.
So I would say it's 50-50. Don't burn bridges. Make sure you tighten up your resume, do an ATS style resume, put your stuff on all the job platforms and promote yourself, but also, you don't burn bridges. Have those background, those people who will vouch for you on your skill set and stuff like that. John, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. The deal is especially when you work on big projects, if they like you, they're going to network. I have guys that left and they call me like, hey, PBO, we got a job over here. We know what you make. You want it? Because you work with those guys and those guys trust you, right? They know, okay, PBO good. He ain't going to be BSing. I know especially. I got some app guys I need under control. So I get calls from guys. I got an interview. I didn't get it from AWS from a guy I knew that saw my videos and like, you want to interview making $300,000 with AWS? I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, right? So, but it's just network, because when you work on big projects, man, people leave. I worked on a project with 400 people, and probably half of those people were aware of who I was because I was doing some pipeline stuff and some code generation back then. So all those guys had to come to me. So when those guys left and go to different projects, those guys were inviting me to come on. And especially and he's 100% right, is if you're doing federal work at a federal level, this is small, man, because you're working with about a few or four big companies, then the smaller companies feed in there. But if you get a bad rep, man, you can you can easily be fouled out. So don't burn bridges, like you said. And I work with a lot of people I ain't really like. So hey, that's just part of the game, man. So just do what you do. And two is, and he said it, man, you can have a good life once you get in here, man. I done ate well. PBO got on a diet. I be eating steak every other day, man. I love this job, man. So, and like I said, and the crazy part about it is, I do less production work and do more paperwork. But when I F up, we might not be able to collect IRS data. So the stuff I do has a big impact, right? If you mess up an assessment, I might tell you can't get this data or this project, you won't get an ATO. Then everybody's looking at you, right? Because that's authority to operate, right? So I do less and more paperwork, but if that paperwork's off, man, the project could be shut down and you messing with people's livelihood. So like I said, and two is you get paid for that level of issue, right? Like I said, I do less production, but when I mess up, it's a bigger problem. So but you get paid for that bigger problem, right? So that's what's. But I tell people, shout out to that. The one thing I wish I would have done was winning a management more. And I got MBA people invited me to it. I just don't like management people, but I could hire people that I wanted to. So that's one thing I kind of wish I could have went a little more on that management track, so I could hire some of the young studs I see out here that's struggling. I could have had my own team. So shout out to Struggle Security. He's up there in the director level. So that's kind of one thing if I kind of went back on things. But y'all Z's are hard to manage, man. Y'all little crybabies out there. So I don't know, man. But if I went to do it over again, I probably would have went to that, because I've been invited to managers, managed teams. I was a supervisor a couple of times and I just hated it. So I just kind of went more. I think we kind of on that same level. Senior technical guy, I do my work. I advise the young guys and help them, but they ain't reporting to me. I ain't got them problems. So that's my 2 cents on that. What's your thoughts on management, man? I think we kind of on the same thing.
I'm with you, PBO. I've been offered many times to do management, and I see them getting paid just a little bit more than me. And dealing with bigger headaches. And I was like, nah, I'm good, man. Can I do it? Yeah, I can. I'm good with people. I'm very, very kind. I lead from the front. I just if I don't have to do it, I just don't want to do it, I'd rather not do it. But I can see where that closed off a lot of paths where I could have just went and managed my own team and hired a bunch. I could have hired Larry to go do some stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm seeing those opportunities where I'm like, damn, like maybe I should have went that route.
How old are you? You don't mind me asking?
I'm 49.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, yeah. I should have did it in my 40s when I had those offers. I'm 50. I'll be 57 this year. I ain't want none of those headaches, man. I'm trying to get this cloud and do this last 5 or 6 years and shut it down. So I don't want those problems. So I've been.
That's kind of where my head was at. Was like, I don't want those parts. I mean, I think maybe if I managed my own company, like and I hired people, it'd be different.
I had my own company for a while, man. because now you got to chase the work, get the work, and manage the work. So you got to go tap dance to get the work. And tap dance, you've been in those meetings getting that government work, especially when you go out. I was bidding against Booz Allen those work. I tried to do a little 8A set. Man, that stuff was brutal, man. I heard one guy told me I wasn't qualified to do the work. I want to punch him in the mouth. You gonna say that in my face, man? I'm from the hood, man. I will fight. So I was like, man, no. So I did it. But yeah, so man, that people just don't know, man. Going to get to work, you got to hunt it, then go get it.
Me, man.
No, man. I was like, no, I wish I would have did it a little longer, but I did it for a while, man. And the thing too is I took less money to build a company with 3 other guys. I mean, I probably opportunity cost about $200,000. We're gonna win this contract. I'm gonna wait and get paid on the back end. The back end never came. So hey, man, but that's part of life. I learned a lot though when you being on work, RFP, presenting, doing those oral presentations to try to get work. So now, but the cool thing now is I get to grade. When I worked at the state, I used to grade people orientation. I used to be lighting them up on purpose. I asked them, how was your FIPS 140-2? I know I can see in their eyes. He had no idea what that was. Tearing them up, but no, go ahead. But no, that's a whole different realm, man. Be careful what you ask for on that, man.
Definitely. Okay, let me see. I got some more stuff from TikTok. Somebody said, is FedRAMP the single source of cloud compliance?
No, there's a CSA alliance out there. Well, let me back up and I'll let you jump. It's the single source if you try and do federal work, but if there's other compliance for privacy, CSA alliance, we were looking at that for some stuff, which is more private. But if you're doing government work, FedRAMP, because the IRS says you got to have a FedRAMP data center. The CMC says you got to have a FedRAMP data center. Chime in on that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Like if you're talking about GovTech, GovCloud, FedRAMP, that's pretty much in the US. Yeah. There's other governments, so they have their own thing. But for the US, I can't speak on the other ones, but for the US, it's going to be FedRAMP. I don't know what the state does. I don't know if the state has a state FedRAMP.
They do. It's StateRAMP. If you look up StateRAMP, I did a video on this called StateRAMP. Long story short, knowledge services.
Man, I'm learning so much stuff from you. I'm like, what?
Knowledge services, because I worked at the state. Only the big agency had compliances. So all the smaller agencies were getting people hacked. So knowledge services came out with StateRAMP, and they've been pushing it out. The crazy thing is, I like StateRAMP because they telling you got to do STIGS. I'm like, dude, that ain't gonna work. But you look at StateRAMP, it's real big. Yeah, you see it out there?
Dude, StateRAMP.
Yeah. No so it's real close to FedRAMP. But for some of the smaller agencies, that was something. Because once again, I worked for the state of Indiana, and I used to help the smaller agencies. We had like 60 agencies. Only the big 20 had a compliance. So the museum and all that, they wasn't doing nothing. So they were getting state tax. So now the service who I used to work for came out with StateRAMP, and a lot of states are kind of picking that up. And Texas had their own Texas ramp, which I thought was crazy, which is actually their version of StateRAMP. But if you learn StateRAMP and FedRAMP, you will dominate. That. You already got it because you got the STIGS and you got FedRAMP. So it's not you don't have to do a PIV card, and I don't think they were pushing FIPS 140-2.
And then FedRAMP, all it is NIST 800
in the cloud, with a few things, and it gets you on that shared responsibility, like what's their part and what's your part that you need to do. Are you platform, SaaS, infrastructure as a service? So
let's see. Larry says tips for mastering frameworks. There are so many pertinent ones. It feels daunting to get them all down on professional level. I would say, look, Larry, you don't have to master all of them, man. Each standard framework, they focus on a specific industry. And like for our industry, the reason why we talk about NIST 800 so much because we're both in the federal side, and the federal government focuses on NIST 800, which is based off of FSMA. Yeah. So that's our thing. Our regulation is FSMA, and the standards we use is NIST 800, and we might use some NIST CSF or something. We need to know those things. We don't need to know HIPAA. We don't need to necessarily know PCI DSS. Does it come up sometimes? It does from time to time. But what we need to know is our lane. Now, if we were in retail, if we were working for Walmart, or something like that, we would need to know PCI DSS very, very in great detail. And if we were in, I don't know, banking, we might need to know like Sarbanes-Oxley or something like that.
Glibber. I do a little Glibber work. Glibber.
Yeah, there you go. And my man, he might know. So what's your take on that?
No, you're 100% right. And I tell young people, shout out to Study GRC. When I met those guys, they were like, we need to learn everything. I'm like, no, you don't. Like you said, pick something and become a SME at it. If you learn 800-53, if you look at the special publications, they map to all those other compliances. That's one reason I just got lucky. If you look at NIST 866, it'll map you to HIPAA. If you look at, I want to say it's 200, it's going to map you to Zero Trust. So if you learn one of the big compliances, it'll map you to the other ones. Especially if you do 53, all the other ones, it's a superset. So if you do that, so a lot of times when I do small companies for small vendors, I just do NIST 800-53 low moderate, which is less checks. Then you can go moderate, then you can go high. So that's kind of how I do it. But like Larry said, I would just pick one and master it. And then two is once you get to a certain level of 53, the rest of that stuff is just little nuances, right? Like I said, CMC, they have a few more checks. 171, they got less checks, but they all sit on top of NIST 853. So, and like you said, they all have policies and procedures. They all have findings. They all have POEM. So, once the nuances of IRS Pub 1075, CMC 53, and two is once you do it, as long as both of us, it's just language after that. We got a POEM, we got a finding, we got a compensating control. We got a this, we got a that, we got a scan, we got some, we got some rapid sevens. Here's our findings. They categorize them for you, right? And that categorization tells you how much risk your company has. If you got a bunch of Cat 1s, you got a bunch of risk, right? So that's kind of how you flow it up. The other thing, real quick, is when you go up to management, they don't really care about technology. They want to say this business function has a risk. So that business function of collecting state taxes, the Oracle database underneath has findings, but the risk is we can't collect tax money, right? And the higher I go up, the less technical I talk. What's your thoughts on that? I start talking business function, profit, and what's the risk of this business function that relates to this technology. So
yeah, it's spot on. So as you get deeper into these frameworks, what you'll find, and I think I just got lucky. Like I started bouncing around. I just got bored and I started doing different things. I started going to other industries and got introduced to other industries. And what I found was if you know NIST 800, then pretty much all of them kind of fall into that. Like, and pretty much all of them are doing best security practices. And that's all. The name of the game is best security practices. And, like MFA, multi-factor authentication is something all organizations do. It's not going to be, only PCI DSS does multi-factor authentication. No, there's a whole bunch of things that all these guys do. And there's a core function. Now, some of them might focus more on, I don't know, network segmentation or something like PCI DSS or something, or they might focus more on encryption of data for patients or something. That'd be HITRUST or whatever, But once you learn one, just like John said, like just focus on one in your industry, and then you'll start to get all the nuances down, and those will map to other things. And then Larry says, so you're trying to level up when the opportunity is in the different organizations that use a different framework. How do you best navigate that? I would say just focus on where you're at. Like focus on where, don't worry about, like, I know we kind of will throw like PCI or whatever other things in there, or, IRS or whatever. Like focus on whatever industry you happen to be in. Whatever industry that is, focus on that. And slowly these other things will come in, and you'll be introduced to those other things. But right now, if you're in the government, just focus on NIST 800. That's it. Focus on NIST 800 risk management framework, like NIST 837, NIST 853. And then you might get introduced to a NIST CSF. And then you'll be like, what's that? And then you'll start to see, okay, they have functions, huh? They don't call them controls. They call them subcategories. Oh, here's how it maps to this, So just focus on where you're at for now.
Yeah, and the other thing too, that one reason I like NIST is NIST does that mapping for you. If you look at NIST 866, it'll do the mapping for HIPAA for you. If you look in there, there's a document. I think it maps to the PCI even. So if you're doing this, it does the mapping for you. So if you needed to get in the org, but once again, like you said, you need to become the SME in the area. Like I said, I picked 53. I was just lucky 53 so big it maps to all the other ones. So there's very few things I do on 53 that doesn't cross over. And a lot of times I think 53 is so much better. I'm a big and I think, hey, we need to do 53, man. Let's don't play around with the little stuff, man. I do big systems and big things, so I make big pay. So I won't do 53, but no. So that's what I would say, like, especially if you're doing NIST, and that's why I like the special publications. If you look at the NIST special publications, I think they got like 150. I try to go over one once a month, and they get everything: the PIV card, cloud, web servers. They go through everything. Secure coding, I think was 207. I think 207 might have been Zero Trust, but they're special publications. So that's how NIST 53, and then you do special publications to drill down, and that'll help you pivot. So that's kind of why I stayed in the NIST family, and that's probably why I got all of those NIST videos, because there's just so much out there. So I sorted all the special publications, so I'm trying to go on the newest special publication that I think are relevant. They were doing something with meters or something for old meters. I was like, yeah, I don't think that applies to me. I'm gonna skip that one. But there's a lot of special publications that you can drill down in there. And once again, Zero Trust is hot out there now, and they got cloud, secure codings out there. I've done videos on those. So there's just so much out there with special publication that helps you pivot. Then you can reach out to us if you need some pivot type information. So I'm decent in, I try to do videos on what I think are the most common compliances that I think you know. I did NIST, CSF, CIS is popular. I do IRS Pub 1075. A friend of mine did ITAR. He wanted to move military ammunition. So I've got a compliance playlist. I probably got 30 videos in there. One of my young homies said I got 60 hours of compliance videos in my compliance playlist. So usually I have if you're looking for a certain compliance, I usually have a compliance playlist. Like I said, that ITAR, he was kind of because I did that at DOD. We did where we were moving ammunition, so I actually had to do something small on ITAR. So that's why I did a video. But once again, if you had a compliance between us and Struggle Security, Tech G's out there, there's so many people out there that can help you, man. So keep it techie. So I mean, there's so many people out there that can help you in a lot of areas. And so that's the cool thing about internet, though. There's so many people out there, and we kind of conjugate. It looks like it's a lot of people out there, but it's not. But we kind of conjugate it. So I'm sure if you reach out to me, Convo, once again, Struggle, Tech G, there's a lot of people out there that can help you
Absolutely
trying to pivot. So
okay, I got another one from TikTok. Somebody says, I work in nonprofit healthcare environment, and I'm a system admin, and I apply ACLs. Suggestion on for GRC. Are you talking about trying to get into GRC, or if you're trying to get into GRC and you're a system admin, actually you could pivot very perfectly into GRC because you know the fundamentals of cybersecurity. If you're a system admin, you've been doing cybersecurity. You're applying ACLs. So now you want to get into the documentation side. You want to look at the big picture. And start to think about not just that system that you're working on, but the whole organization and how do they protect that system. So you're talking about getting involved with the security policy, the controls, and documenting the controls. Those are the kinds of things you need to put on your resume if you're trying to get into GRC. What would you say about that, John?
Yeah, you're 100% right. I would look up the STIGS and the schisms because that's actually the hardening of compliance that you would do on your particular system. And that's the way to help you get in the security and kind of pivot over. And like you said, get the bigger one. But a lot of times doing security on Apple's, it sounds like he's more on a Unix box than a Windows box. But there's STIGS for Linux, Ubuntu, Red Hat. So learning that. So as a security compliance, I come and says, these are the security hardenings I need you to do on this Unix box. Make this happen. So you need to study what those are. So that'll help you get that knowledge, then that'll help you pivot over to GRC, because we got to communicate with you as an admin, but a lot of admins don't know what those hardening requirements are. So I tell them to start with the STIGS. So what is that ACL? What is that particular UMass? What is that group versus users versus everyone hardening for the ACLs? What should that look like? Those are requirements you need to start studying. So that'll be a good way for you to pivot into security and pivot into GRC.
Yeah, and when what Professor Blackops is saying is a STIG is a security technical implementation guide, and they might call it something different where you're at, but it basically it's a guide that walks you through putting all the security features on a system. So be involved with that process and put that stuff on your resume.
Yeah.
Let me see if I got another question here. Let me see. People are talking amongst each other. I guess while I'm searching through this, I can put some of these other questions up. More questions. Thank you guys for all your comments here. I'm enjoying the information. I love the advice for a niche in becoming a subject matter expert in IT. Are these roles IC role? Are these roles IC roles? I'm a project manager for infrastructure for SRE teams, plus a couple of Scrum teams. I'm dying. The Z's are stressing my life.
Oh, yeah, I said the Z's. They just different, man. One of my homies, I love him, man. I was yelling at him. He like 6'8", 400. I'm like, why do you look like you're gonna cry, man? I'm yelling at you because I like you, man. The industrial controls, I think that's what he said. And the hidden gem for GRC, and I'll let you chime in, is half the times you end up project managing stuff, because POEM is basically a schedule. So you end up, unless you work for a big company, you're running the schedule when stuff's gonna get fixed, when stuff is due, depending on if it's a Cat 1 or critical, it got to be fixed in 30, 90, 60 days. So you end up kind of PMing. SRE, shout out to that. Reliability engineer, you make sure stuff never goes down from AWS. So I've actually studied that. So you got a lot of good stuff. So the question is, I guess, what's the question?
What's the question?
Do you want to get a GRC? I'm assuming IC is industrial controls. With this, you can definitely get into GRC. So
he goes on to say individual contributions.
Okay.
I don't want to be responsible for someone else's deliverable or have them report to me.
That's cool for GRC, especially I work for bigger clients. We usually have a PM I work for. So my job is to figure out what those action items are and get those in there, because most PMs don't really know what the security items are for a security reviewer of assessments. So I usually give those to the PM and they drive the deliverables. So my job is to make sure those deliverables get delivered, but I'm not responsible. So like we give the admin the checks, PM's responsible for making sure those checks get put on, right, for the STIGS. My job is if he has any problems, he reach out to me. So, right, so that's kind of delineation. But in smaller companies, I end up usually PMing. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't like what I'm doing right now is kind of like PM work. I'm doing information system security officer work with Department of Homeland Security, and what we're doing is it's not like I'm not as hands-on as I usually am. So it's like I'm doing a lot of meetings, and I often will refer to myself as a security secretary, because all I'm doing is all I'm doing is coordinating the meetings and putting the things together. It's kind of frustrating because I don't have hands-on. They're asking me, oh, what's this GPO? What's going on with this? I'm like, I don't have any insight into that. Like, I don't have, you guys have made me a project manager. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. You know, I do that? Maybe, but I don't have any exposure to that. So I'm just doing, I stay in my lane, and that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm going to deliver to you. And as far as deliverables, I have to pull in other people to get things done. And we are sharing the load on the responsibility of the deliverables. It does not come down to one person.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all of us as a team. And if we didn't deliver it on time, then we didn't deliver it on time. So
GRC though, that's kind of, and I'm like you, I got a lot of technical background, but a lot of times in GRC, they have an essay that's in charge of GPOs. That's not my lane. Now I can assist, but and I was pissing people off because as a younger guy, I want to step on people's toes and get stuff, but that's that division's job. They usually have a web admin, a DBA. That's their responsibility to do, or Windows admin. That's their responsibility to do those security things. My job is to oversee it and assess it. Now, if I got PMs, I got to make sure you meet that deadline, but those aren't my responsibility. And as I get older too, is I want young people to grow. So I'm like, here's your security things. Let me help you become a better admin. Let me help you become a better SRE. So to make sure we failing over to another AZ or another region, right? I'm trying to get you new skills. So that's kind of how I do it, right? So, but if I need to roll my sleeves up, I can. But as I get older, those are requirements, especially for the younger guys to get better. And that's stuff they can put on their resume. So they really geeked up because I tell them, you can get 30% more. You get your security down player. Now you a security admin with those skills, right? So that's kind of how I sell it, to give those younger guys more skills. And usually they really love it because they start looking Indeed. They like, oh, those guys make more money, right? Because now you part of security, right? So that's kind of how I sell it. But right, those aren't my deliverables, right? And I try to once again let the young guys learn and coach those guys up on those GPOs, ACLs, UMass, Zero Trust, how we doing network segmentation. Intune now, Microsoft has their whole threat analysis they're doing, making sure those products are set up. But like you said, those are my action items. I assess those. I don't build those, right? So
Yeah, this is actually a good. It's really an interesting comment he made here, because this is something I'm hitting right now, where we had an ATO, and I get called in, and they'll be yelling at me about something.
yeah.
And ultimately when it comes down to it, my deliverables are the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, the system security plan. I got very specific deliverables. As far as everything else, I'm a part of a team. Like we're all of us are delivering something to get this thing approved. So I as I've gotten more mature, I just realized, I'm not going to stress myself out about something that's not on my plate. This is all of us, and all of us as a team have to come together and get this thing done. Let me see. I got a few more questions, and then
Hold on, let me chime in on that. Just one little thing is, he 100% right. But what PBO does is, I make sure the PM has the deliverables. My SSP's on time. My stuff, GPOs, that's in charge of the infrastructure manager to make sure that gets done. That's not a PBO deliverable. Even though it's us, what's my favorite boss? I don't want the other part of we to get us in trouble, right? So PBO try to make sure we got right. So PBO stuff now. If the infrastructure need my help, I'm here, man. If the DBA need my help, but they have their own managers and their own deliverables. So what's your thoughts on that? PBO ain't trying to get yelled at. I've been yelled at by a 2-star general, so that's how I. Don't let the other part we.
I'm learning. I'm learning from you.
Go
I'm
ahead.
learning from your wisdom right there. That's something I need to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, because people, it's a weird tale. People start getting yelled at, right? It's a weird, because I'll be yelled at times 2-star general, so I let it know. PBO stuff was on task. PBO asked the web team. They told PBO they didn't need anything. So just let me know what you need. They start yelling at them. So I don't let the other part of us get we in trouble. That's what my boss was just like. Don't let the other part of us get we in trouble. So PBO ain't trying. Now, if I make a mistake, I'll be the first one. That's my bad. I own it. But I ain't trying to get yelled at because y'all didn't know what y'all was doing. But go ahead.
That was really good. I love that. I'm about to keep that in mind. John said, I applied for an ISSO Information System Security Officer at Raytheon. What interview questions should I anticipate? Okay. So if you're an Information System Security Officer, they're going to ask you about NIST 853. They're going to ask you about NIST 837. They're going to ask you how they're going to ask you questions to see if you know how to apply the standard to
Yeah, I can't hear your sound. I can't hear your sound. They, yeah,
Okay,
they in
sorry
the,
about that. Can you hear me
okay.
now?
Yeah, because the
Was
chat
I
said
was
I
I
thought
blank the
I
whole
can hear
time?
you now. I was like,
All right, so I must have accidentally hit the button here.
okay,
So
okay.
let me start over. So what they're gonna want to know is if you know how to apply the NIST 800 to whatever situation you're going to be in. So what they'll start doing is hitting you with a bunch of acronyms to see if you know what those acronyms are and how familiar you are with the whole framework. They're going to ask you a question like, okay, you have a POA&M and it's slowing down your ability to attain an ATO, right? So right now they're already throwing a whole bunch of stuff at you. You're like, what the hell? If you've been in this field for a while, you know what a plan of action and milestone is, you know where it applies in the NIST 837, you know what's going on with an authority to operate an ATO.
Yeah.
They're going to ask you situational questions that applies to make sure that you know what's going on with the risk management framework process. That's what they're going to try to gauge you on is, do you know what this framework is, NIST 800 risk management framework, NIST 800, and do you know how to apply it to specific situations? All their questions are going to be involved with that. They might ask some NIST CSF questions if they're involved. The best thing you can do is this: go to the Raytheon's job description page, and read through exactly what they're going to have you do, their requirements, everything, and study it, and then figure out how you would answer each one of those requirements. And don't try to BS them. If you don't know it, just say you don't know.
Oh, yeah. That now that's a hidden gem because what PBO does is I'm gonna ask you a question on purpose. I know you don't know the answer, and you'd be amazed how many people try to BS me. And I'm waiting because there's some tech. If you're not FIPS, or I might ask you something about a PIV car, something I know that you're not gonna know the answer, and I'm gonna watch and see if you just say you don't know. You're gonna try to make some up. The other part of that is understand your program process. So one thing we're trying to do is do some labs and some study groups on what actually is a program process, right? The thing I get answered a lot of times is you had a finding, but you couldn't apply it. What would you do? All right. So like you said, I did a mitigated control, and a lot of times they want you to get technical. We couldn't patch it. The developers did something to the program. We couldn't upgrade the patch. That program was used internally, but it was externally on the internet. So I say I'm gonna bring it internal. And the other part about he just said is, if you log into that app now, I'm gonna make sure you use MFA. And then part of that, it was only 5 people using it. I made them do reserved IPs, and only those IPs could get to the subnet that particular application was running. But they're gonna test you a lot of times because I've been doing this for over. I just say what I said. I take over a meeting. I just tell them how I would run a program, right? And a lot of times when I talk, and if they start nodding, I'll go, okay, they're on the same page as me. So I'm gonna tell them how I would run the program. Especially like as an ISO, you run the program. So what are you gonna have people do? Like I said, what is a POAM? If you're in the cloud, what's your shared responsibility? Are you using infrastructure, platform, or software as a service? If you couldn't, once again, fix a finding, what's your mitigated controls? What have you done opposite? Can you walk through something like that with me? Right. So I kind of walk through something at a high level. You got to have your 2-minute elevator speech. So whatever you ask me, I probably got a 2-minute speech for you. So
Exactly. Now, like I said, to anticipate what questions they're going to ask, the best thing you can do is go down and look at their description and go down each one of the things that they're wanting for that job, and then quiz yourself on those questions before you even do the interview, so that you'll know what they're going to go off of your resume, and they're going to go off of the job description. Those are the questions that they're going to ask you. If they ask you anything outside of that, then those weren't that important. Those questions are kind of preferred things that they would like you to have, but not necessarily have to have. But the things that are the requirements on the actual job description, those are the things that you want to anticipate that they're going to ask you. Okay, let me see if I have any other.
Then real quick on that is like you said at the ISO level, they're gonna ask you how you run your program, how you handle different situations. So you should have all that in your back pocket.
Absolutely.
And maybe because I'm old and grumpy, I've been doing what I'm just gonna tell you how I run the program. I don't even read the job description anymore. I'm gonna tell you what I've done, man. But don't follow me. I think he got actually. This is what I've done, man. You either want me not. You saw my resume, so this is how I done it. And I tell people I'm about this life, so I'm gonna tell you what I did and how I did it. So if I'm a good fit or not, right? But two is a lot of two. Raytheon is super corporate, right? So you got to have the golf shirt on. You got to go to the golf outing. You got to shake hands and slap backs. They're going to make you come somewhere at least once a quarter. So you got to know what kind of culture you're signing up for. Now, PBO, I'm versatile, right? I really want to be at home in my pajamas, but hey, I'm Chunky Woods. I can kill you on a golf course, man. I can come out for a little work, man. So you got to be able to, because when you're doing Raytheon, those big 3POs, that's a different game, man. They got you in a ton of meetings. And people gonna try you. What I mean, try you. They gonna ask you buzzwords to see if you know what you're doing, right? They're
Absolutely.
gonna. And when you get hired, even people in other organizations, right? Because it's kind of the top fittest thing. So people are trying to show you up and trying to outdo you. So they're gonna test you to see if you really know what you're talking about, man. So I tell people, I'm gonna show you how smart I am. I'm about this life, but that corporate thing can be a little doggy dog, so you gotta know what you sign up when you step in that Raytheon world. What's your thoughts on that? That's my thought, because I worked for Khaki, I worked under Raytheon as a sub, especially as a sub, and I thought those guys were they was testing me. Do you really know what you say you know? And I go, yeah, I do. Let's do it, man. So that's my thought. I thought it was a little rough, man.
Absolutely. Like what they'll do is they'll give you situations. They won't flat out ask you the question. What they'll do is they'll give you a situation to see what your experience was with plan of action milestones, or with dealing with difficult customers, or with applying a security control, or working with the system team to apply a security control. They'll ask you specific situational questions. And the best cheat sheet you can use is their own job description. That's they're gonna ask directly from the job description and from your resume. And that's the best thing you can do. Okay, I got another question from Miss Franklin here. She says, is the NIST CSF considered a general framework that is used by most companies? What would you say to this, John?
No, this really is going to be Fed work. And I think CSF is smaller suppliers, but I need to dig into it. When I do big government work, everybody use 800-53. I've never done CSF. But once again, I do big systems, big thing. Everybody I know who's doing NIST, I take that back. NIST CSF, I see suppliers, smaller suppliers using it, trying to get work from the feds. But now I think CMC's going to take over that work in NIST 171. I don't see CSF used very often.
So when I worked in Verizon, we had a cybersecurity consulting group that would work with smaller companies. Well, not smaller companies, but like small, medium, and large companies. And I was shocked that so many of these organizations would reference NIST CSF. I was shocked. I thought it was only government, but a lot of them were referencing it. And what we started doing was we would use it as a way to match other controls, because the way it's made is that it goes off of functions and categories. So, for example, you have functions like govern, identify, protect, response, and recover. Right, those are your main functions that any organization should have in order to deal with IT and also deal with security issues. And what we would do is we would match, like, let's say it was a healthcare organization. We would say, okay, how are they dealing with govern? How are they dealing with identifying assets and vulnerabilities? How are they identifying? But to answer your question, is it considered a general framework? Not necessarily. I have to agree with John, because if you're in the federal space, it's going to be mostly NIST 800. They might reference NIST CSF, but it's going to be mostly NIST 800. If you're in retail, it's going to be PCI DSS. If you're in healthcare space, it's going to be HIPAA, HITRUST, or something like that, you might reference NIST CSF, but it's not usually like the main thing that's used. It's really good for matching other frameworks together. Like if you, let me give you a specific example. So we had one where we had an international organization who they had a site in Europe, and then they had one in the US, and they had to have a framework that was it called GDRP, GDPR,
GDPR.
whatever it's called.
Yep.
They had to conform with that standard with their site in Europe, and then they had to conform with the NIST 800 with their site in the US. So what we did was we used the NIST CSF to say, okay, how are they matching? How are they in compliance with identify or govern function here for the GDPR, and then how are they matching that over here in the US with the NIST 800? So, I mean, that's like a special case, but NIST CSF is really good tool if you're trying to build out a really good cybersecurity program. But is it used everywhere? And I wouldn't say so. Usually they're going to be using whatever space you're in. That's what they're going to use as far as the framework.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something there. Is privacy is becoming big. So I do a lot of, not a lot, but GDPR and CCPA. Then there's a CIP certification. I think, and NIST got their privacy family. They're making big. So I think privacy. You see them now. Are you accepting all the cookies? You can pick the cookies. Are we tracking you? So I think privacy is becoming big. So I think cybersecurity now with privacy, big companies usually have a separate privacy officer that's different in the security. So when I work for a company, we have privacy and legal together. I would do the security reviews, then we would come together and review the contract together. So privacy is becoming super high. And most major companies, especially large companies, the CCPA and GDPR. And now if you look at New York DFR, which is their financial regime, is becoming real big. So there's a couple big privacy framework. California has a huge privacy. A lot of states are following that. New York just came out with theirs. I'll probably do a video on that. So those are, and a lot of people are following GDPR. I'm like, dude, we don't have European customers, so GDPR. That's some more stuff we got to figure out. But I think when you're a senior guy, I think you need to get your toe in privacy because they're starting to meet. And if you can master those, I think just adds to your more value. So once again, I'm comfortable in GDPR and CCPA.
Okay, let me see if I have any other questions. Got a lot of comments here. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Yeah, my audio was off.
I know. I think was that me? You? I'm pointing. Like,
I did this mic. I'll just like accidentally hit the thing. Let me see here. Got more questions here. Somebody said, on my way to work. Do you do this every Saturday? Yeah, I do this every Saturday. Trying to have more people on here. Somebody said, oh, here's one. Do I have to know Linux to grow in information security? What would you say to this, John?
No, but it's a nice to have. I mean, so no. I think you need to understand the kind of architecture of Linux, groups, users, and everyone. So when you set apples on it, a little bit about the operating system, but now you don't have to understand Linux. I think you being as a security savant Google, you will want to learn it, right? Because you start stacking your skills, the more stuff you learn, really the more money you can make. And as a GRC person, if you got to go talk to the Linux people, they can be assholes. So if you don't have any background, they're going to run over you, man. So you got to have some understanding. So that's my take on it. I like to understand that because that's one thing I bring is I can talk to those teams. So when you talk about STIGS or schisms or CIS checks, I might have to come up with a compensated control and work with those guys. All right. So I think you understand it's going to help you with the communication because there is some technical overview if you're in that lane, policies and procedures. But once you talk about the whole program, you got to work with those different teams. So Linux is definitely a highly used operating system. So I think you should learn it, but it's not a must have.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. Do you have to? Not necessarily, unless your job requires it. Is it better to have? Yeah, it is. It's definitely better to, especially command line interface on both Linux and the back end of Windows. It's going to be very helpful to you. And the deeper you get into this, the more you're going to have to know. So, do you absolutely have to? No, you don't. Should you? Yeah, I think you should. Right? You should at least know Linux. At least like mess around with Linux and mess around. You're gonna have to mess around with Windows. There's no way around it.
Right.
But I would mess around with it, and then I would definitely get into the command line interface. And then let me see. Somebody said, do either Professor Blackops or you have a Discord channel or chat anywhere? PBO, you have a Discord that you want to share out to?
I'm in about 6 of them. I don't have one. I'm in Keep It Techies. I'm in the Kev Techs. I'm in Study. I'm usually in Study GRCs or Simply Cyber by Dr. Ozers. I'm in so many people. For me, I hear like this as a security person. The more attack vectors you have, I was trying to cut down my attack vectors, so I want to do this. I try to keep my attack surface small. So I'm usually in Dr. Ozers, Simply Cyber, or Study Hard GRC, or if my man starts one, I'll be up in there. But now I don't have my own. Like I said, I'm in like 6 moving around. So
yeah, I have one Discord, but I want to do something different. So I haven't been in. I'll like post jobs on there sometimes, and I noticed people were jumping on Discord. I'm trying to shop around for a good chat because I know like it. I'm only here like on the weekends, so I would like to do like a Monday through Friday thing where I'm talking to people on a regular basis because I have so much great information coming from this community. People, there's like, man, I'm learning so much from people and stuff, and I would definitely want to do it, but just stay tuned. I've got some stuff coming to where we could talk more. Let me see here. Somebody said, thanks for the chat, fellas. Been building my GRC for the last 3 months and looking for a role. Keep what if you happen to be still watching, what field are you in? What industry are you in?
just real quick, I'm going to throw that out for you is what search do you think you helped GRC? I mean, I'm studying for the CISP. I've been studying that for a year. I got to get motivated. I got the Security Plus. I got so much experience, so I don't think people. And I got a bachelor's in comp sci, so I would go. I like the standard trifecta: Security Plus, Network Plus, those. And once you get a little in the game, the CGRC, which I think used to be the CAT. Once again, since I'm a cloud guy, I want to pick up some cloud certs. And I probably do a couple AZs because I got to get better at Active Directory. So that's kind of one of my things. Go ahead.
So right now, I'm looking to get deeper into cloud. I'm trying to be where you're at. Like I need to get deeper into cloud. I don't have any cloud certs. I'm seeing that it's now a weakness for me, and I've been avoiding it for a long time. And now it's like, okay, it's time. I'm looking for a job, and everybody's like, "Do you have cloud? Do you have?" No, I don't have cloud, man. I know FedRAMP. So yeah, that's where I'm weak at. So I'm trying to get up there with you. But what I do have is I have a CISSP. I have the old cap, the ISC 2 cap, which is now the CGRC. I have that. I have a Security Plus. I have I had my first cert was an A+ certification. The Network Plus. I don't know what they're calling it these days. I've had other ones that industry level certs, but I don't use them anymore, so they're kind of not relevant anymore. But the main ones I'm using right now is the CI that have been super helpful is the CISSP and the CGRC, and now I'm trying to get deeper into the cloud stuff. And I was like on the fence between Azure and AWS, and I decided to go AWS. So I've been studying that, and so that's why I've been watching your content to like get deeper into it. And then like your stuff is like clicking for me. I'm watching them like, oh, that's it. This is what I need to know right here.
And the other thing is, and you said this before in other videos, CISP is the gold standard. And I think a lot of times, even as a senior person, I'm missing out on some jobs because HRs use the CISP as the cutoff because so many people apply. I got lucky the job I got. They said I knew somebody that had the experience, so they didn't look for the CISP. I have CISPs asking me questions, but especially remote jobs, it's 300 people. So the cutoff now is CISP. So that's why I've been taking practice. Long story short, I took it, no lie, in 2005, missed it by 6 questions. My boss figured out in 8570 I needed the Security Plus. I took the Security Plus, passed it, and never went back and took the CISP. So that's one thing. Another thing PBO messed up on, because it was easier when I was younger. I can't memorize nothing, man. I'm almost 60. I'd be struggling. So
nah, you got it. You got it.
so,
Like you,
yeah.
with your experience, like you'll get in there and you'll just.
Now the problem is though, is I've done stuff some way for that work for me, and when you look at the CISP, they said I'm doing it wrong. So it's like, but it's sometimes like, okay, some stuff you got to unlearn a few things. I'm an old dog, but go ahead. Yeah.
Man, it's like there's the right answer, and then there's the answer they want, and and the hardest part about that test for me was that the answers they'll have like 4 answers, and then 3 of them will sound almost very similar to one another. There'll be one you can just throw out, like, oh, this isn't it. There'll be 3 that sound the same, and then there'll be 2 that are both are right, but one's more right. And it's like, this is crazy, man. And then in the questions, as I'm taking the test, I'm like, okay, I know what the right answer is, but I know what they want to hear. And I'll be like, okay, here, this is their answer right here.
And that's why I failed, because it's a management test. So you got to come at it from a management perspective and a CC's perspective. And I be coming from a tech guy, right? So that's one thing I'm finally starting to turn around, right? Is that thinking of it from a manager standpoint. I'm thinking of it because, I got my hands dirty, so I'm thinking of it from a tech point. But that's it. And so, like I said, I need to go ahead and I go back and forth. I'm like, I'm comfortable. I got a job. I think I'm going to be here. So do I really want? I'm like, yeah, I need to go ahead and get it. So I'll have it if I need it. So.
Somebody said, I have the AWS solution architect. Yeah, I think I'm going to take PBO's advice, and I'm going to go ahead and do the. You said AWS associate. Well, let me see if my notes.
That's what I think. That's what they got. That's
associate architect.
Yeah, because they got an associate and a professional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got 2. Yeah, so I got the associate. I was studying for the professional. So yeah, so they got different tracks.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this.
Yeah, take the associate, take the practitioner, associate architect, and take the security specialty.
Okay, we'll do
that
for sure.
Be it. And the cool thing is the associate architect school, it teaches you at a high level, but when you go into companies, they don't talk about AWS organization, AWS landing. Those are professional terms. When you do it for real, right, you're gonna need some few more services that they don't even talk about in the associate architect.
Right. Yeah, you gotta unlearn some stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, you gotta think it from a management perspective. For me, that's because I'm a tech guy, right? So I grew up in the trenches, so that's a little different.
And another thing is, like, I'll be reading the question, I'm so frustrated because I'm like, this answer depends on more information. Like, how can I answer this question?
I struggle with that because I was doing a test bank. Yeah, I was doing a test bank. I'm like, I need some more, so I start writing the test guys. I'm like, hey man, what y'all got some more info? Yeah. But I'm thinking, okay, is the test like this, and they not gonna give you everything you need? So I don't
know. Larry says, would you guys recommend looking private sector or public sector when looking for entry-level opportunities? Is there a big enough difference between the two that it even matters? What would you say to this, John?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. Because I work for the state. I tell people, if you can, go for the public sector, especially if you for a state job. The reason why is they don't pay as much, so the competition's less. They're gonna make you come in, so you're gonna cut your 97% of the people out. The other thing people don't realize is state, they get discounts, so you get some touch on some of the top technologies. When I worked for the state of Indiana as consultant, we had Oracle, we had Cisco, we had Archer. So once those guys, entry-level guys, got 2 or 3 years, the vendor came and hired them and doubled their salary. Because they get to see what they work, they ask them questions. Sometimes you go private sector, man, that shit be doggy dog, man. So I thought the public sector, like I said, the pay's a little less, but I think you get a little more leeway. Like I said, the state of Indiana, they work with you then. And two is the other thing too, is I kind of wish I would have got, if you work 10 years at the public sector, if you start at 19 or 20, 30, you got a partial a pension and you go do something else. So there's some other things. I play around and I tell people, because I do IRS Pub 1075 and SIGs and state police, I'm real familiar with those compliances that state uses. So that's why I'm a real big advocate of public, which is part of really gov tech. They just really never think of state as part of government, right?
Now, PBO, do you consider a contractor for the public sector? Is that what you're talking about? You're talking about purely public sector, like when your check says State Department or says U.S. government or whatever.
Right. Because to me, when you work in a consultant, that's a high level job. That's doggy dog. That's part of the private, right? So that's kind of why I separate them. Because if you work because as a consultant, man, we doggy dog. So you hiring some of the top people because you got to put them in there to help the government, right? So that's kind of where I separate them. But because to me as a consultant, my job is to help the state people, to train you up. If you make a mistake, my job is to be there, hold your hand, and make sure you're good while you learn, right? So, and I think that's some of the benefits of the state. It doesn't pay as much, but I think there's a lot of times less stress, and a lot of times you get consultants to help you. And once again, they had some of the best technology on the planet. We had an Oracle app server. We had we were using Archer. We had Cisco. We had all the top stuff, man, at the state, because they get discounts from the bigger companies to buy their stuff. So that's my take on it.
And I started off in the public sector, in the military. That's where I started. And then I started seeing people, get out of the military making double what I was making. And I was like, damn, okay.
Well, real quick. When I worked at DOD, and I kind of wish I did, I make dudes was triple dipping. They did the 20 years as a service. They went in 18. They came back and did civilian. I think you need to do 10 to get the 15. It's weird. You don't have to do that. Then they came back as a consultant. I'm like, oh, man, y'all dudes are getting free. And the cool thing, is once you get a top secret clearance, I work some people with some dumbasses. They the only one could get in the damn room. Top secret. So they would call out and we would tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, if you one of those top Navy guys, they would get those clearances, man. So
great point.
Get shot at, man. I've been in the hood, so I don't know if I could do the service. But now I would tell people if I would do it over again, I might do that, man.
That's a great point. Like one great point John just mentioned is that when you're in the public sector, like there's less competition. So when you're in there, not a lot of people can do not even skills. Like we're not talking about brains or skills or nothing. We're just talking about if they were able to get a clearance, a security clearance, like a TS clearance or secret clearance, not everybody can get that. And then hell, I mean, it even weeds out people who are not U.S. citizens. Like they're good, they're out of there. You're not competing against them. So you're competing against less and less people in the public sector. So public sector, if you have the opportunity to do it, might be a better choice for you to do, and not necessarily the military. You can be a civilian working for IRS, directly for the IRS. You could be working for the State Department directly. You could be working for, there's so many different jobs. If you go to usajobs.com, they have a bunch there and right now the government's looking for people, especially looking for younger people. And they're starting to get away from the whole degree thing. So you might want to look into that. Go to USA Jobs, and if you go to whitehouse.gov, they've got some kind of incentive thing, because we have this huge gap within the government. The U.S. government is looking for more people to come into this field, and we need people. Like I could tell you, in the last 5 jobs I've had, we don't have enough people to do the job, especially young people. Everybody's coming in is not that much younger than I am, which is to say, not very young. And we need more younger people to do this work. So if you're looking to get into this job, like now's the time.
Is that by design? Are we gatekeeping? I get on my boomers because like you said though, is they got a degree, so they want people to have a degree. But 2 is, and I push back on them, is when I understand why they do that, they're like, dude, if they mess up, man, they're gonna get us hacked. That's gonna be a couple $1 billion we can lose, right? But I'm like, dude, we train everybody before we let them touch our system, right? So there's plus and minus. So I think I don't know. I think we got gatekeepers gating. So I've been kind of pushing back and saying we need younger people in. Let's train them. Because when I was in there, I think when I went to the state, I was 42 and I was the youngest person on our team, man.
That's what's happening.
Our team was old. What's your thoughts on that, on the gatekeeping? What you think?
Man, I don't. It seems like we have an old mindset of like there's these standards for engineers to get in there, and those standards were like you have to have X degree, you have to have X years, you have to have X certifications or whatever. And now the technology is moving so fast that we can't. I don't think we can hold those standards, especially the degree. I think we have to move forward. Like if we want to bring people in faster, we have to stop thinking of this old stuck mindset of like we have to have a person who has a degree. I mean, hell, a degree. Do you need to know about 18th century Western literature to know how to do a server? You don't. So like we have this old mindset that you have to have a degree and you have to have X, Y, and Z to come in there. I just think that it's like you said, maybe it's gatekeeping, but it's based off of an old mindset that I think we need to change it because especially now technology is moving so fast. We need to get younger people in here, and the Gen Z are not being hired. I don't know of one Gen Z on my team right now. I got
one hired, but I had to really go to bat for him. And my boss, he trusts me. I call him Tiny, even though he's 6'8". He goes, I don't know. I was like, well, he said if he mess up, you got to watch him. I'm like, I got him. So, but the other weird thing is, even more than that, I got a bachelor's degree in 1990. I studied Fortran, COBOL, PL1, RPG. That shit don't even exist anymore, man. I'm like,
point.
So I was saying like, so what are you talking about? But it does teach you fundamentals, and I like, dude, I could take the area of a tornado. I've never used any of that. Man, because you have to take like Calc 2, and I'm like, dude, I've never used any of that.
Right.
So I think, like you said, it's an outdated model, right? But I think people think because for them, they pay the price to get it. They want you to pay the price, studying. I tell people, I'm not trying to be a Renaissance man. I'm trying to build a server, right? So,
right, exactly. Like I think we need to just change that. That has to change. That mindset it's gotta go, because we're not getting no young people in, and it's like I'm just thinking to myself, damn, like what are we doing here? Because it's not. This is not sustainable. Like at least not in the circles I'm running in my current job. Like I don't know of any on our team. On our information system security officer team, there's not even one Gen Z that I can think of. Not even one, which is like, and there's some millennials there, but it's mostly millennials, Gen X, and boomers. And that's not sustainable.
Yeah, but the paperwork is not exciting, man. It just started getting exciting recently.
That's true.
But I tell people though and I'm worried because GRC is now starting to sound like Bitcoin, man. Everybody's got something to sell you. Most of these people aren't even credible. I'm like, dude, you ain't never done this. But I'm like, dude, we starting to sound like Bitcoin. In 3 weeks, you can make 100,000. I'm like, dude, run, man, run.
Yeah.
Run. What's your thoughts on that? I think that's kind of what I've been hearing. I'm like, dude, I'm thinking we starting to sound like damn Bitcoin.
I'm trying to just tell people the truth. Like I'm trying to tell people, listen, this is a tough job to be in. A lot of times people focus on the IT side of it, and which is important, but emotional intelligence is really important as well, because you're dealing with a bunch of assholes sometimes. You have to have the emotional intelligence to deal with that. It's very stressful. And so I just tell people the truth. Like, listen, this is not for everybody. I tell people this is not for everybody. Is it a stable job? Do you make money? Yes. But this job is not for everybody. So when people come to me and they're asking me, hey, I'm a teacher and I want to get where you're at, I'm like, listen, where are you at with IT? You got to start where you are. Where are you at with IT? Are you an IT? Are you a geek? You got to start there with the fundamentals. And then I try to bring them to where I'm at, but it's going to take a while. I'm just very honest with them about it. And I do notice some of the influencers are like, oh, I'm on the beach in Hawaii. Look at me. You can be like this. And I'm trying to tell people the truth, and I get like the gimmick and try to pull people in or whatever to sell your course or book or whatever. But if you're really trying to help people, you got to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to do. And I'm a huge advocate for GRC, but the reality is this is a journey. This is a marathon. This is not going to take you overnight. You can't do 3 months of, like, there was one, and I'm not going to drop any names or anything.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like you. Go ahead.
There was one guy who was saying, you can get he's saying, okay, don't do the CompTIA certifications. They're a waste of time. Go straight for the CCNA. And after you get that, you'll make 100,000 and you can do that in 3 months. I'm like, the CCNA is hard as hell. And number two, they're not going to hire you just off of CCNA. They're going to want to know you have a bunch of experience because you're going to be handling their routers and switches. That's their whole network infrastructure. They're not going to hire you just off of you having the CCNA. So what the hell is this guy selling? And I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to tell people the truth. And if they're going to get in this field, I want to tell them to do it the right way.
Yeah, I got the opposite problem. I'm telling you, it's hard, man. You got to study. You got to get in there. Yeah. And the 853 is a big document. Even though they split it up into 3 now, it's still a big document when you put the core and A and B together and trying to do the nuances. Then, there's a management side and the technical side. I try to, once you do policies, procedure, get your SOP configuration, get you some incident response. But my favorite thing, you got to talk to the STIGS guys. You got to talk to the infrastructure guys. You got to talk to the networking guys. So how do you handle all of that, right, from a program perspective and make you valuable so you can last in this industry? Because it's hard to get hired now. I think it was a lot easier early where maybe somebody would take a chance on you. But now people are asking for certain certifications. They're asking for experience. And if you're doing a remote job, look on there. That's like a couple hundred people applying for those jobs, man.
Man, it's got to be a way. We got to get people in these jobs because I don't know why they're making it so hard for people to get in these positions. That's definitely a problem in our industry. Because like I said, the last 4 or 5 jobs I've had, it's been me wearing 4 or 5 hats.
Yeah.
Where they can go ahead and hire people, and it makes me mad because I'm there working extra, doing all this extra time and all this extra work, and I'm like, man, we need more people. And I'm telling management, we have to hire more people because I can't do all of this. And I don't know what's going on. What's your take on that, John?
I agree with that. So I'm trying to figure out, like you said, what is the disconnect? Because you can start something doing gaps on policies. You look at the NIST document, you can kind of look at the cool thing, though, is what we've been playing around with, which I think is taking up. We let ChatGPT learn. We uploaded the 53, then told ChatGPT to read this policy and ask them if it complied. Right. So that's kind of interesting to see how AI is going to. But you're right. We're way short. Like you said, now that you mentioned, there's no young people in our org for the compliance. And like I said, when I worked there for bigger company, the compliance was bigger, but smaller companies, usually 2 or 3 dudes, man. It's not like this big org, right? So it kind of depends. That's kind of why I like the federal space, because they usually have a GRC department with 6 or 7 guys, and you kind of splitting it up and you're splitting the teams up. But most of the times at the state, GRC is usually like 3 people. Right. So it's not big.
Somebody said public sector has more security. Yeah. I want to leave private sector. It's too volatile. It's pretty volatile.
But you take less money. But 2 is the pension. Like I said, I was thinking about maybe going back to the state, take a little less money, maybe. Of course, I'm happy with my job, but take a little less money. In 10 years, I have a partial pension because when you old, you got to figure out how you're going to live, man. So the cool thing, though, is what's your thoughts on this is you can do GRC till you black out, man. I don't even put clothes on anymore, man. I don't even come off camera anymore, man. I get on, I be talking like I'm on YouTube. My fault, team. I'm struggle streaming today. How y'all doing? Here's my SSP. Here's my documents. I'm doing some positive. Hell, I can do that till I'm 80, man. So I don't know. So I've been thinking about, just kind of working GRC till I die, man. You make good money. It's not stressful. I can sneak the laptop on a Virgin Cruise and work from anywhere. Hold on, let me take that back though. Is VPN does not hide your location. I just want to throw that out there for you.
Thanks for letting me know.
Well, it does, but what happens is, and I told him, shout out to Black Heights, is when you booting your machine up, we take your location before you log on to VPN. We log you out after 12 hours to take your location. So when you log back in, so every time you logging in, we taking your location. So that's why VPN cannot hide where you at. Everybody goes, it can hide. Yeah, it can, but you got to boot it up and start it up. Before you do that, we're taking your location. Go ahead. What's your thoughts on? Or could GRC tell you 90?
Yeah, it looks that way. I'm trying to move into like a more of a teaching space because I found that's what I'm really good at is teaching and writing. Those are my best skills. If I can get away from the government a bit, that's my plan. I don't know if I'll be able to. I get out and then they keep pulling me back in.
Well, real quick is the professor part is I taught 10 years out of community college. You don't make jack. That was actually my dinner money compared to what you make in GRC. Because
yes, you're
to
right.
Make real money, right? You got to be a doctor because you're not me. I did it as a hobby. I was an adjunct. So I ended up making like $30, $40 an hour, but you don't work that many hours. It was dinner money, man. I was eating some Wagyu steak with that money. I couldn't live on that money, but I enjoyed teaching. Shout out to brothers. I passed a couple people I shouldn't pass. I liked them. I said, "Get it together, young man. Get it together." But yeah, I taught at community college for 10 years, and then we kind of had a disagreement when the new regime came in. But I enjoyed it. But you ain't gonna make a living at that. That's all I'm saying, man. I really enjoyed it. And two, now it's automated. I did Canvas and some of the bigger LMS things, and it's cool. The test grade themselves now. So I would lecture. Now you lecture online. The cool thing I did is I did a virtual. I did a virtual assignment. We used to go to the IC2 security remote through. So I make out my class go there once a month. I said, go there, introduce yourself. I knew some guys there, so you can get at least. It's 3 hours. At least stay for an hour. I'm gonna take a screenshot of your name and send it to me. So I was doing virtual field trips. So when I left, it was like, we loved your virtual field trips. I'm like, I would tell y'all to go, and I would go eat dinner. I wouldn't even go. Go ahead. But yeah, I love teaching. You just can't make any real money at it.
Let me see. Next one is I think that the danger of public sector, it's easy to get complacent and have your skills atrophy unless you are finding other avenues to use your skills. Yeah, that was one of the things. But for me, what I did was switch it up in GRC as a whole. And when I was in the public sector, like paid by the U.S. government, they were pushing us. So I was doing network engineering, I was doing help desk, I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was doing risk management framework, I was doing everything in there. So, but I do know what you mean because I know some of my like GS people, they would be stuck in just doing one thing for a really long time, and their skills, whatever skills that they had, would definitely atrophy on that one.
I guess mine was a little different, especially when I was at DOD at the state. Is they had so many new projects and things they were doing.
Right.
Like half the people didn't want to work, so I could just pick up anything I wanted. So it's like, I want to learn that. They're like, okay, because at the government, the projects are so big, only, certain percentage is not going to be working. Certain percentage was trying to retire. So I felt like I could almost grab anything I wanted, man. If I wanted, I was doing Oracle, I was doing Java, I was doing Apache and Tomcat, man. I was doing a little everything because, like I said, they were doing these new things, and a lot of people were setting their ways, and they didn't want to pick up anything new. So I was just grabbing it all, man. And they were like, "Yeah, young guy, if you want to do my work," I was like, "Okay." So I just got it, man. So they let me get it. So I got it. So that was my take on it. So
there's let me see. Somebody asked another question. Let me get to that one about I don't know if it's a comment. USA jobs and White House jobs. Okay, hold on. Let me show you what I was talking about here because it's important.
White House jobs, not USA jobs.
There was
we need more jobs in their article, but go ahead. White House said we need more cyber jobs.
There was this thing where 500,000 jobs, that the government was looking for. And let me just see if I can find that. They said they're looking for, they have a gap between cybersecurity jobs in particular where they can't find enough people to do the jobs. Yeah. And it came from the White House. So I'm trying to find the actual link that could show you guys what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I did a video on that, but yeah, I think we gatekeeping those jobs. Why are you looking for it? People ask me what's my thoughts on AI and machine learning. I said our gap is so big that I think AI is going to eat up that gap. I don't think anybody's going to be laid off because we're 1 million people short. Some people said 5. I seen 1.2 million people we're looking for. Some will say we 750,000. So what AI is taking the gap so big, nobody's getting laid off in cyber for probably 5 or 6 years.
So here's what the article here. White House launches a cybersecurity hiring sprint to help fill 500,000 job openings. National Cyber Director Harry Coker Jr. unveiled the program as part of an effort to fill the continuous gap of cyber technology and AI positions. So let me see if they're not putting here it is. Okay. I'm trying to find the actual link. White House looks to close the massive cyber gap. And last time I checked, the link was on whitehouse.gov. But let me see if they have another place. Yeah, okay, here's whitehouse.gov. And they're saying, in fact, this is coming directly from whitehouse.gov. Fact sheet, administration announces national cyber workforce and education strategy to unleashing Americans' cyber talent, and looking for the actual, they're going through all the policies and stuff they're trying to close out. And let me see here. Look at this. It's not just DOD, right? It's like NSA, it's Office of National Cyber Director, it's the NIST, the actual NIST, Department of Labor, Office of Personnel Management, Veteran Affairs Office, CISA,
CISA,
HUD, and a bunch of other organizations are all involved with this, and they're trying to fill many of these departments as well. So this is a huge thing, and I'm looking for the actual where you can actually apply. Okay, here we go. So just go to whitehouse.gov. You'll find all this stuff here. You can also just Google it, and connecting Americans to good paying jobs in cyber, and tons of links here. Just a whole bunch of guidance and resources if you're actually looking to get into this. So we were just talking about how can Gen Z get into this field? They have incentives to get people in here because there is a gap. I'm telling you, like, I've been working as a contractor many years for these different organizations, and we're not getting young people in. There's not a lot of people getting in here, and here's some contact information if you're trying to get into these jobs. Lots of stuff here, but you got to get in there and go for it. All right, let me see if I got some more questions here. More questions, and I'm gonna just take a few more questions, guys, and I'm out of here. Somebody said, I'm doing the free introductory course for the NIST website right now. Covers risk management framework 853A and 53B. Any other training sources you recommend for NIST training for the government jobs? I would recommend reading through the NIST 837. Just read through it. It's not even that long. Read through the NIST 837. There's some stuff on Udemy you might be able to do. I have a course as well on it. I have a course.
I was gonna recommend yours, and I think your course is better than the two guys I saw on Udemy. So,
but yeah, your best bet is to do the NIST 800s. Read the NIST 837. It's the way they write it is like for academics.
Yeah,
you'll start to get the idea of what they're trying to say. Those are probably that's the best source that you can use.
Yeah, come over to me. I got some videos on it. So, like you said, check out this course and come over and I try to do the videos, like you said, kind of bring it down and put some real world stuff with it, and do this with the cloud to kind of put a bow around both of those.
Yes, and actually, yeah, to that point, like link in description below. I've got Professor Blackops stuff there. I'm learning stuff from his courses. So,
I appreciate it.
So go ahead and check him out. He's got some great information on there.
My thing I need to work on, I think you do an excellent job, is all my videos are like an hour and a half. The kids say they're too long. I need to chop them down. So I'm going to work on making them smaller and stuff to the point. So because I used to teach, so I do my videos like I'm teaching a course. So I've always had PowerPoints on mine because, like I said, I taught for a decade. So the kids say I need to make them shorter. So I'm working on that. So they love them. They just say they got to watch them over a couple day period, 2-3 days. So
Larry said, my only reason for backing a degree is that I work with a lot of people that flat out suck at public speaking and other soft skills. Their interpersonal skills in business, in a business setting, is not good. That's one of the things that'll sharpen you depending on what courses and college you go to. I know on mine, they emphasized working in teams, and I had to take public speaking and stuff, and they force you to get in there and work with people. So that is something, and one of the interpersonal skills that it's going to develop is along with writing. In my course, there was a lot of writing.
Yeah. The thing that I want to throw out to Larry, and I think you're missing the point, is that's why you better than them. I work with a lot of guys, I think, on a spectrum that are brilliant. My job is to communicate with those guys and get them on point. They don't want to leave the cube or their house, but they're excellent at what they're doing. I'm going to let them be great, and I'm going to guide them. That's why I get paid, Larry. I want them to suck. If everybody was doing it, then I can't make the money I make, right, Larry? So I think you're looking at that wrong. I work with some brilliant Unix guys. Them dudes can barely tie their shoe, but they are bad on the Unix box. So I'm going to let them be great. Like he said, they stand in their lane, Larry. Then I can stand in my lane and make my money, Larry. I think you're looking at it wrong, Larry. That's my 2 cents, man. I want people to be great at what they do, man. So I want them to suck a little bit. Because I'm going to do the speaking, I'm going to do the lead, I'm going to communicate to management, because they don't want to do that. They want to build their Linux box. They want to build their Amazon. They want to do their MFA, and they do all that stuff great. Sterling. Know all the STIGS with one eye closed. So that's what I want them to do, Larry. So
what's funny is I've had a couple of my buddies who are super, super technical, and they try to do this GRC stuff, and they hate it, man. They hate it. And because it's, the stuff we have to deal with. We got to deal with people who you get in a meeting with somebody who knows everything and takes all the oxygen in the room. You got to deal with difficult people on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Whereas they're just locked in the closet doing their own thing, and all they got to do is work with that system.
And see, like we talked about, though, is I seen those guys try to talk to CIO. He don't give a shit about a UMass. He's trying to figure out why his database down and we can't do business. He's talking about the RAID of the 5 and the disk and the 3 disk. He's like, when are we gonna be back up? Right? They can't even communicate, right? My job is, what's our SLA? Are we violating it, right? How much data do we lose? And what's the RTO? What's the RTM? What's the RPO? Right? So they don't even know how the conversation to communicate, right? My job is in the middle. It's like, okay, he needs this disk. It's going to take him 12 hours. Dude, our client, we paid at 6. well, we're gonna have to give them some credits, boss, because we're gonna be longer than 6, right? So those are the communication of you as GRC, you as a PM, those are the conversations you need to have, right? But that's the value I bring, right? He don't want to talk to the nerd, and the nerd don't want to talk to him, right? I'm in the middle, and I'm catching it all and making it smooth, right? And two, I might like, well, can we bring up partial rate and get it up going at half the capacity while we bring the rest up? Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that, PBO. Do that up, then we're not violating our SLA. Then the manager's mad because we don't have to give this client credit, right? So those are conversations with you in the middle as a senior guy, Larry. That's how you make your money. That's why PBO eats well, right? So, that's how go in there. I'm on my soapbox, man. I'm going to let you get in there.
Okay, someone said, is this a shot at Simone B's? LOL. Just no, I think you know what, Simone B's is really cool. Like I watch her stuff too. You've got to put it in perspective. Simone B's is a brilliant person. Like she started doing coding in her she was a teenager doing code, right? She's an exceptional talent. Not everybody's like that, so I'm speaking to people like myself, a single father, married 2 times, like I got some real, I'm not a genius. I didn't start coding at age 19 to 17. I'm a regular ass dude. So I'm speaking, if you are on some, I got kids, I'm an adult, or hey, I'm in high school. I got B's, C's in high school. Now I'm trying to get out of my retail job and move on. Then you came to the right place. I'm trying to get you from point A to point B, right? So not all of us are Simone B's, who's a genius. Like she's a brilliant person. So I'm speaking to regular people. And so this is for me, it wasn't a shot at Simone B's. Like more power to her. I watch her content. She was been an inspiration. I saw her stuff on TikTok, and that's why I started doing TikTok, as a matter of fact.
Nah, damn, I gotta go to TikTok now. Everybody leaving me. I gotta get. But now, like you said, though, it's people at different levels, and a lot of times too is, and I get a little worried about it. We seem to only talk about outliers. What's an outlier? Through deviation that most of the people are never going to get to that level, right? So and I think from an organization, I'm sure you can get to 300,000 person and get one starting, but that's an outlier. The average person is not going to. That's never going to happen, right? So he's like me. I'm trying to work for an average dude with an average skill set, get you some certs, but you might have to go to help desk. You might have to do a couple steps, then you pivot, and that's more of a regular, normal kind of pivot into this organization, and not an outlier. And I think
that's exactly right.
And I get in a debate with people about, can we stop talking so much about an outlier too? But then I seem like I'm old curmudgeon, right? You got to work hard as an outlier. These are the steps, right? So and sometimes I think a lot of people think that's an older mindset. So I mean,
to John's point, like another outlier is this dude on TikTok named Chris. I don't know his whole name, but he's one of the biggest cybersecurity TikTokers. And this dude within a year is making 6 figures. He went to he went to a degree certification, or he got a degree, a master's degree in 1 year. And then he got a certification, and then he started working remotely. You realize how crazy this is? It's crazy. This doesn't happen all the time. And so I don't know how the hell he did it, and I don't know his whole story, but yeah, he did it in a very short period of time. That's not everybody. Not everybody can pull off a master's degree in a year, 2 years, whatever he did, and then suddenly be working remotely. You know how hard it is to work remotely? It's hard. Just like John was saying earlier, like you get on there and 100 people have applied for the same damn job within 2 weeks. It's very difficult and very challenging to do it. So there's outliers, yes, who in a very short period of time made 6 figures and is working from home or whatever. They're usually extremely brilliant or something. There's something going on. I don't know what's going on, but that's not all of us. I'm speaking to everybody, right? I'm not just speaking to just outliers or whatever who can do that. And I'm not saying it's impossible. It's possible, but very few people can do what they just did.
Yeah. Then on the back end of that, which is another conversation we're gonna get into, is You see the big companies are bringing people back in from remote work. So remote jobs are getting smaller and smaller for a little bit. I think that's going to change as Silicon Valley, smaller companies trying to save money. But people forget large companies has large real estate that ain't paid off. So, and two is in the state of Indiana, we give you tax abatements by how many people you put in that building. So if you ain't got people in that building, we want our taxes back, right? So I think a lot of people forget that. So they're bringing people back. So remote jobs are getting less and less if you look out there. So I think that's going to be not an issue, but that's going to make the competition harder and harder.
Okay, I'm going to ask a couple more questions, guys. And then we've been talking for 2 hours. It's been great conversation.
2.5, man. I was trying to get the record. My record's 3.
Oh, 2 hours. Dang, 2.5. Okay. All right. Let me see. My last question. Let me see. Let me get a good one here on TikTok. Somebody says, does ISSOs only work with government organizations? Okay, this will be my last question. Somebody said, let me see if I can pin this one. Quick question. Do ISSOs only work with government organizations? So the term ISSO is Information System Security Officer, and that's a term that's used, as far as I know, exclusively by the U.S. government. Every organization has an ISSO type position where you're doing a little bit of governance, a little bit of risk, and a little bit of compliance. And to break that down quickly, governance is like where you're doing a little bit of IT management, or you're working with an IT management type person. Risk would be like you're running scans, or you're receiving the vulnerability scans or network scans, and you're reading through them and seeing, or you're part of the vulnerability management team. And then compliance is where you're making sure that the organization is doing what they're supposed to do. So whether you work in the EU and you're doing GDPR work, or you're in the state of California where you're doing state FedRAMP type stuff, StateRAMP type stuff, you're kind of doing the same. There's going to be somebody in that position who's doing something like an ISSO type position, but they're not going to call it ISSO, if that makes any sense. John, do you have any?
The weird thing is the state of Indiana, we started using that title in ISSO.
So, okay.
So the state, what they did is you weren't quite a CISO because you didn't have a budget or people. CISOs usually work for smaller agency, and like you said, they did it kind of everything themselves. And what they would do is they would get a kind of MSP. There's kind of a state MSP, so they would run the contracts for the smaller agency. Because so that's kind of where they use it. Like you said, it was small, and they kind of did everything. The rest, the contract, they do with the assessments. They probably will let a third party do that, or some kind of other state agency would do it for the smaller state. But so that's kind of where we're not seeing it at the state of Indiana. So
okay, all right, and that's it, guys. Thank you guys for joining us on TikTok, on Facebook, in LinkedIn, and everywhere. I appreciate it, man. Professor Blackops, man, it's been a pleasure having you, man. I don't think I've laughed this hard on a live. So it's been, I gotta have you back, man. It's been very entertaining. I loved it, and I'm definitely gonna go back right after probably today. I'm gonna do some studying on your site. And if you guys didn't know, I'm talking to Professor Blackops, aka John, and link is in description. He's got incredible information on security and cloud compliance. So get on there. Cloud is right now. It's not the future. It's right now. So get on it. That's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate everybody. Peace out. Thanks, John. I appreciate you, man.
If you need any clarification on my channel, just ping me. I got a compliance channel out there. I need to put some more playlists to make it easier to find stuff. So if you're looking for something, just let me know. I pretty much got everything out there. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend, man. I was a single dad, man. Now my kids got kids. So I'm cool, man. We'll talk, man. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I will do, man. Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate you.
No problem. Enjoyed it, man. Thanks.